The girl stares seriously and thinks that life is a bad game. Then, she coldly says she has already decided to remove the other person from the party. She states that he can no longer keep up with the group's battles. The two stand facing each other at the top of an overlook, with the city behind them and something abnormal appearing in the distant sky. The girl, the leader of the group and much stronger, calls the boy and asks if he is listening. He answers yes, showing that his level is far lower than hers. They remember when they arrived in the city and leveled up together as a party. He comments that he thought Tokyo would be full of monsters, but realized it was just another city where people and money gather. The girl says she understands that clearly now. She explains that she didn't tell the other two and that the decision was hers alone. He thinks about being expelled, remembering that the leader can do that, but normally it damages the group's reputation. The boy apologizes, saying he should have spoken earlier. The girl looks down and says she knows he's terrible at giving up, and that he has always been like that since they were kids. Then she asks him to take care of the departure paperwork. She offers to transfer his share of the party's resources, but he refuses and says to use it on his replacement. They walk apart and exchange simple farewells. He says it was fun, and says goodbye to her, and she also says goodbye to him by name. He admits to himself that he already knew. The last expeditions felt like suicide missions, and he only survived because the others always covered for him. If that last hit had landed, he would have died. He hesitated before because he was scared of leaving his friends. He walks alone down the street thinking that people have always pointed out this difference in talent since he was born, and even after entering the dungeon, he accepts that this difference exists, but something is still stuck in his throat, like he still has more he wants to say. He stops, looks at the sky, and admits to himself that he just wanted to stay with them a little longer. The narration says that Kiichiro was expelled from the Holy Sword Party. Elsewhere, some people comment that they finally kicked him out, that it was always a mystery how he even got into that group, and they criticize him while he walks by without reacting. He walks through the city, hearing strangers saying that being a trap master doesn't match geniuses like that group had, and that he only got in the way. He thinks he doesn't need people to say something he already knows. When he bumps into someone who doesn't even notice the impact because he's too strong, Kiichiro thinks that guy must be an adventurer. He tries to apologize, but the other guy doesn't even notice. He keeps walking, thinking that when someone falls behind, the world doesn't wait. The narration explains that it's been 40 years since holes appeared in the sky over Tokyo, and along with them, people with abilities were born, the so-called adventurers. On the train, he hears on TV a special report about the Holy Sword Party, called Japan's most famous and the first to officially conquer 300 dungeons. He watches silently while the report praises the group he was just expelled from. The report talks about Tokyo's Origin Gate, one of the 7 legendary dungeons that no one has cleared yet, and says the expectation is that Holy Sword will try it next. He thinks that's no longer his problem. Soon after, something in the sky catches his attention. He looks out the window and notices something strange changing in the hole in the sky. Up close, the structure distorts, and a gigantic hand begins to come out of that rift. He is shocked when he sees that giant hand coming out of the portal. He looks around and realizes no one else is reacting, asking himself if only he can see that. He shouts for everyone to run, but the next instant a violent explosion happens, destroying everything around. Among the rubble, he tries to understand what happened. He remembers the hand coming from the portal and realizes it disappeared right after the impact. In shock, he wonders if that was an attack from the Origin Gate. Lying on the ground, he thinks he needs to warn the girls before someone else gets hurt. He remembers the party and cries, asking why he couldn't keep up. If he was going to die anyway, he wishes he had stayed with them until the end. A strange voice starts to appear as he breaks down. A strange woman appears before him among the ruins. She comments that it's pathetic to see the chosen one like this, but says that the fact he could see that must be destiny. He asks who she is. The woman answers ironically that she could be a god, or maybe a demon. She then looks closely at him and teases, saying she knows what he wants. She says, "Shall we begin?" approaches him and pulls him in by force, giving him an intense kiss while he is still wounded on the ground. She continues to hold him and kisses him without giving him a chance to react, even throwing herself onto the ground with him while letting out a low laugh. She vanishes shortly after, saying she has given him power and expects nothing in return, so he can live however he wants. Looking at himself, he notices that his wounds have disappeared and wonders if that was even real. He stands up amidst the wreckage and sees another injured person asking if he is okay. As he tries to respond, he feels something strange coming from above and looks up at a concrete wall about to give way. The concrete begins to collapse and they run. Keiichiro realizes it is another trap and tries to think of a quick solution while opening his skills interface. The interface shows a new skill called arrow symbol. He is surprised, since he didn't have it before, and remembers the woman's words saying she gave him power. He wonders if it is a unique skill. With no time to think, he activates the new arrow symbol skill as a trap on the ground. He throws himself over the other young man, shouting for him to get down, and the symbol begins to take effect the moment the debris falls. The debris falls exactly onto the symbol and is diverted, preventing it from hitting the two of them. Keiichiro stands up along with the other survivor, surprised that it worked. He observes the giant symbol on the ground, trying to understand how that trap works, as it seems to manipulate movement. Later, with rescue teams already on site, a man thanks him for his help but questions his report. If a giant hand had truly come out of the portal, the city would be in chaos, and no one else saw anything. The man says he will take notes, but reminds him that he isn't even part of Holy Sword anymore, and says to leave the rest to those who will be sent. Keiichiro leaves, thinking that even if they had believed him, what could they do against something of that level? He decides to change his mind and go to a forest near Tokyo. In the forest, he decides that if there is anything there that helps Holy Sword defeat the Origin Gate, he will go after it. Facing a low-rank monstrous boar, he thinks about testing if he has what it takes to one day stand by their side again. He sets a trap, and the boar dodges at the last second. Keiichiro tries to attack, but the beast escapes the slash. It wouldn't be that easy to fall for the first strike. He runs, thinking about the class's limitation. Trap masters do not attack directly. They only gain experience if the monster falls into the trap. That's why they are considered weak. Even so, he remains calm, saying he has dealt with enemies like this before, and prepares another trap. He activates the arrow symbol again, and the boar is pulled by the effect, accelerating in the direction indicated by the trap. The impact happens right behind him, kicking up dust and shards while Keiichiro runs to avoid being caught in the blast wave of the trap's explosion. He realizes that this new skill compensates for the class's weakness. If he can touch the enemy, he can force them directly into the traps. Even admitting he is still weak and doesn't know how to fight up close, he concludes that it doesn't matter, he will keep going anyway. He clenches his fist tightly, moved, saying that he finally achieved what he had always hungered for, real power to fight. While he thinks about wanting to get even stronger, the scene cuts elsewhere. A female warrior fights alone against a horde of enemies, while people behind her scream for her to run and abandon them. She tells them to shut up, saying they are getting in the way. She faces a massive number of enemies alone. The men behind her insist that she flee and leave them, but she gets irritated because there are too many enemies and she continues to fight without backing down. Back in the forest, the lights around him indicate that he has leveled up. He realizes it had been a long time since he last achieved that alone, and admits he had been depending on others for too long. He realizes he shouldn't wander too far from there. The narration comments that since the portals appeared, monsters have gradually begun to invade the real world. Then, he stops upon hearing a sound coming from the brush. He sees a cave ahead and notices the sounds of combat coming from inside. He finds it strange, as he believed that area was not monitored by adventurers. He hears only steel hitting shields, and deduces that whoever is inside is only defending and is in danger. He thinks about contacting the association and waiting for reinforcements, since there could be monsters stronger than the boar. Even so, the sound persists and he hesitates on the spot. He starts running, thinking that running away now won't bring him back to the level of his former comrades. Even without knowing how strong the monsters are and without armor, he decides to go anyway. Running toward the cave, he activates a trap on the ground. The explosion opens a path and he rushes forward without hesitation. Inside the cave, the warrior keeps blocking attacks from several monsters at once, but ends up being grabbed by one of them and screams as her subordinates panic. She is slammed to the ground by several monsters at the same time, while another charges at her from the front. Her expression shows she won't react in time. Suddenly, a line of impact tears through the battlefield, and the monsters around her are blown away, opening space around the fallen warrior. A young adventurer appears in front of her and asks if he can help. The people behind her notice his equipment is high level and are surprised by how fast he arrived. He says he isn't rescue support, he was just leveling nearby and only wants experience. not items. She asks if he's going to help, and he accepts. The others realize she had been protecting the civilians alone the whole time. They exchange names. He says he is Kagura Keiichiru, and she introduces herself as Rize Ejeno, Paladin. She suggests leaving the attack to him, so he reveals he's a trap master, which surprises her. Keiichiru runs ahead, saying he'll handle the attack, and asks her to protect the civilians. The monsters charge, and he realizes that without surprising them, they don't fall that easily. He thinks that luring the monsters one by one into his traps is the best he can do, but that won't be enough. He needs something with area range. Even without knowing why, he feels like he can do it. He prepares the trap again with determination. He runs while the monsters surround him, activates the symbol on the ground, and the slash he released merges with the trap circle. He stares in shock at the result and thinks, trap fusion. He completes the command of the strike, and the slashes cross in an X, sweeping the monsters into the air all at once, the result of the fusion between the arrow symbol and the slash. He finishes the attack, and the monsters fall dead around the symbol on the ground. The knight looks shocked and asks if he's okay, trying to understand what she just saw. She insists he must be a mage for being able to attack like that, but he replies bluntly that he is a trap master. She is left confused, saying she has never heard of a trap master capable of attacking like that. He replies that he just tried and it worked, even though it was his first time. The civilians thank him and he asks if they can run to get out of there. Suddenly the ground shakes. He looks serious and says he already suspected it. The knight asks what happened, and he comments that from experience, when such a big group shows up, she tenses up and mutters, "Don't tell me." He looks toward the cave entrance and says that, just as he imagined, there is a boss there. A huge ogre emerges from the hole, holding a club and staring at the group with a cruel smile. He realizes the ogre is clearly stronger than him and hesitates, wondering if his trap would work. Even so, he tells the paladin to get the civilians as far away as possible. Then he faces the creature, raises his sword, and calls the ogre to come at him. He watches the ogre charge and thinks that this fight will be his real test. While dodging the heavy attack, he crouches and starts setting another trap, thinking that if trap masters can fuse traps, then he still has a chance. He sets 2 arrow symbols at the same time and, without hesitation, shouts, "Go!" as he charges forward to execute his plan. The fusion of the symbols hits the ogre directly, tearing its body and making the monster roar in pain as it gets thrown backward. The boy mutters to himself that the daggers aren't that great, but they still hurt. He admits he can't get close because his defense is weak, so he'll only attack from a distance. He launches more slashes, cutting the ogre again and again, saying he just needs to wear it down little by little, while the monster screams in pain. The boy faces the ogre head-on, gripping his blade and ready for another charge. Far away, the knight looks back anxiously, saying she needs to help him. But the men say the reinforcements should be arriving and ask her to just lead the way. Even so, she decides to go back. The ogre unleashes a blow too big to dodge, and the boy realizes he won't be able to escape. He tries to resist but is hit directly and sent flying by the impact. He loses his weapon in the exchange, but doesn't hesitate. With his free hand, he activates another symbol on the ground. Trap set. It's an arrow symbol combined with fire, ready to launch the ogre straight into the trap. A burst of fire shoots out from the symbol on the ground, forming a curved jet that spirals upward, ready to hit the ogre with force. The ogre is engulfed in flames and stands there burning. The knight watches in shock, thinking he has a rogue's speed and a mage's power. Then the narration focuses on him walking calmly through the ruins and declares that this man will change the way adventurers see the world. He arrives at the Risei branch in Kanazawa, a major adventurer equipment brand in Japan. Seeing the name Risei, he remembers the knight. He thinks he had heard the name before, assuming she was the president's daughter, and indeed she even manages the Hokuriku branch. While he looks at the display full of weapons, he comments that he has already used that shine before. At the counter, the clerk thanks him for the purchase, and he reacts with a simple, "Oh." The two are sitting and talking. She thanks him for helping that day and explains that they were there looking for valuable items, but the monsters weren't what they expected. He replies that everything turned out fine, so she doesn't need to worry. Even so, he keeps wondering why a branch chief was acting as a bodyguard. She says she took that risk because she was the one who sent her subordinates to such a dangerous place. And on top of that, she only got the position because of her family, so she wanted to take responsibility herself. He understands and reacts with a simple, "I see," thinking she has probably been accused of nepotism many times. She says she didn't call him just to thank him, and asks if they can talk business. Sitting at the table, she looks straight at him and proposes that he sign a sponsorship contract with her. He finds the offer strange and says he wouldn't be good for advertising and doesn't even have a public image. She calmly replies that the reason is simple. She wants him to become the strongest of all. He hears that the sponsorship would be an investment for the future. Thinking about it, he remembers he was expelled from his old group and finds it strange that someone is betting so high on him, as if expecting him to reach the top. He explains that he was expelled because he was weak. The girl says that, in that case, his group must have been blind. Without raising his voice, he asks her not to badmouth them. He realizes she was only trying to cheer him up and apologizes for responding like that. He thinks that even though he has power now, he is still immature. The girl says she doesn't care if he was expelled, as long as he didn't do anything wrong, and she doesn't even care if he isn't that strong. He hears her saying he will become stronger. He thinks to himself that it's true not just physically, but mentally too, and decides he's really going to grow from now on. He accepts the contract and shakes her hand. Right after, he asks which adventurer group she used to belong to, while she suddenly brings up another subject saying, "By the way." He reacts in shock when he hears the name Holy Sword. The scene cuts to a girl sitting outdoors, calling Keiichiru-kun. Cut to another place. A girl sitting on the corpse of a huge monster wonders if he's okay. Then it shows two members of Holy Sword, Ashitari Yukio and Itomi Kukuri, talking. They say it was for the best, that they couldn't keep exposing Kaguya to danger just because of selfish desire. One of the girls tries to comfort the other, telling her not to blame herself, believing Keiichiru would understand, and that if they talked to him, he would act normally. The long-haired one, however, says she doesn't want forgiveness in her mind. She was the one who ended Keiichiru's adventurer life, so there's no excuse. One of them jokingly asks, "What if you had proposed to him while firing him?" The other replies that if instead of trying to soften things, she had said something straightforward like, "I wouldn't be able to live if you died," maybe everything would have turned out right in an unexpected way. One of them teases that maybe she's the type who expects the guy to figure out her feelings on his own. The other is left speechless. The friends laugh and wonder how things reached this point. No one confessed anything. They say it was a great chance for them to be together, but she put the cart before the horse. The friend says that even if it feels like it all just happened yesterday, a lot will happen, and before they know it, they'll be distant. The trio walks side by side until one of them mentions hearing rumors about plans to face the Origin Gate and calls Ku to talk about it. They say there is a plan to conquer the Origin Gate, something shared only with the leaders of the top groups. They mention that in autumn there will be a selection test, and if they are recognized as strong enough, the announcement will be made publicly. The planned date would be in December of that year. The three talk about the Origin Gate plan and mention a strange report related to the train accident. Then one of them calls the others by name and seriously says that when they conquer the Origin Gate, they should quit being adventurers afterward. The girl with the scarf shamelessly says she wants to take Keiichiru to another country where polygamy is allowed. The other two stare at her confused, asking what she's talking about, while the scene cuts to the boy, far away, focused. Keiichiru arrives at the isolated area with keep out tape and confirms that this is the dungeon. The inspector introduces herself, saying she is in charge there. He asks if they could prepare a low-ranked dungeon for him, and the woman explains that the rights to that place were transferred to him by Lady Akeno's orders, something he didn't expect to already come with its own inspector. Keiichiru prepares at the dungeon entrance. The inspector warns that she is only there to observe and won't be able to help. He says he knows, accepts the condition, and walks inside, wishing himself good luck, while she watches from outside. Keiichiru enters the dungeon alone and starts testing his attacks and the reach of his skills, checking cooldown time and distance. He decides that after this, he will focus completely on combat practice. Thinking about trap fusion, he believes that by mastering arrow symbol, he can compensate for his weakness and fight at the level of a melee fighter. He notes that this is the first time he has entered a boss room alone. Keiichiru remembers the names of the three girls and thinks he wanted to ask them to wait for him, but decides he will catch up to them on his own. Upon entering the boss room, a B-rank goblin general appears, growling and shattering stones with its hand, ready to fight. The goblin general starts destroying the ground and launching stones like projectiles all over the room, using the entire environment as a weapon. Keiichiru retreats, trying to keep his distance, realizing he can't even get close to the boss. Keiichiru realizes he needs to get in close somehow and destroy the boss's armor all at once. While projectiles fly across the hall, he runs sideways looking for an opening to advance. He activates the combined ability. The ground erupts into sharp spears as he charges in without hesitation. The goblin general is caught in the attack's range, and the boy declares that now it's his turn to act. The spikes fall from above and explode across the ground around them. The goblin is pierced, while the boy is already setting another seal on the floor and shouts the right moment to activate the trap. The general roars in pain, trying to endure it. A new giant magical arrow is formed, marked as a multiple arrow symbol, ready to be fired all at once. The attack lands perfectly. The goblin general's body is ripped apart and falls shattered, while the protagonist appears below, finishing the slash. He picks up the item dropped by the boss, realizes it's something that boosts fire attacks, and remembers seeing it before. Even though he can use it, he decides to save it as a gift for Rizai. As soon as he leaves the dungeon, the group waiting for him runs over. One of the girls rushes happily to him, hugs him suddenly, and celebrates, saying he managed to come back. The maid just watches silently. He looks at the item dropped by the boss, recognizes that it boosts fire attacks, and even matches the trap he already has. Even though he can use it, he thinks for a moment and decides he will give this item to Rizai. A girl runs up to him excited, praising his new cape and saying she has never seen equipment like that in stores. She asks if it's a rare drop and says it suits him. He confirms with a simple, "Yeah." Another girl shows up, saying she warned that it was a private dungeon, but the first didn't care and entered anyway, leaving him not quite understanding what was going on. A girl cheerfully introduces herself, saying her name is Tsukigazi Tsukasa and that she is 14 years old. He notes that it's rare to see adventurers so young in the capital and thinks she looks like a newbie. Soon another girl arrives, praising him and asking to exchange contacts, saying he looks really strong. He refuses right away and says he doesn't even know her. The girl, with no filter, already blurts out loudly that she's a B-rank assassin, which he thinks is reckless to say like that outside of a raid. Another one, surprised, says she's B-rank and comments that this is higher than his own rank. The first one insists, begging please because she needs someone to explore dungeons with. She explains that the places she wants to explore are way too dangerous, and no one agrees to go all the way with her. He asks about her colleagues who are also adventurers, but she says even they won't go. He thinks she's the opposite of him. She's way too strong for her level and can't fit into other parties. He asks if she can't just go alone. She answers with a short smile that being alone is lonely. He says he's busy and that she shouldn't keep calling him all the time. Even so, she celebrates excitedly, and they exchange contact info. The girl reads his data and calls his name with an Onii-chan, saying his age out loud. Right in front of him, she declares his title out loud, Trap Master. The girl gets hyped, saying it's her first time exploring with someone like him and that she's really excited. She rushes off saying goodbye, promising to message him later. He watches her leave and comments that she felt like a passing storm. He comes back from the dungeon thinking that now he's going to end up running into more adventurers like that, and that it's actually a good thing he isn't known outside Tokyo. When he gets back, he's greeted with a welcome back. They ask how the dungeon went, and he answers that it seems he can already handle something a bit higher rank. Then they say they'll prepare the next one for him, and he says that would be great. He calls Rizai over and hands her the item he got in the dungeon, asking her to keep it. She takes it, surprised, not really understanding the reason at first, and blushes as she looks at the object in her hand. Rizai keeps staring at the ring, clearly not understanding. She looks at him seriously and blushing, asking in a low voice what he thinks it means when a man gives a woman a ring. He goes silent, with no immediate reaction, while she stares at him waiting for an answer. He apologizes, saying he didn't mean anything like that he only saw the item as equipment. Rizai then asks why he gave it specifically to her. Kaguya explains that the drop was from that day's dungeon, and that run felt like an important first step for him, so he wanted to give it as part of their sponsorship deal, even though he knows that, deep down, the gesture carried more weight than that. He says he wanted Rizai to keep it as a memento, that he wanted to share that moment with her. She lowers her eyes and comments that, in the end, nothing really changed that much. Then, with a slightly hurt tone, she asks if he expects her to put the ring on by herself. He puts the ring on the ring finger of her left hand, and she reacts surprised at that detail. He gives a simple apology. Later, already in his room, he picks up the card from the girl from before and thinks about her name Tsukigase. He answers the phone annoyed, saying he was busy, while the girl on the other end complains she couldn't reach him all day. She invites him to join a temporary party the next day, explaining that the people are the same level as him and that an uncle of hers is forming the team. He He wonders if it might be good to clear a dungeon with a party, even if it's with random people. He imagines the awkward air of joining a group he doesn't know. On the phone, he says that if she goes with him, they'll probably refuse, and that she should go alone. She insists, saying the leader is a good guy and that everything will be fine, yelling that she wants to go with him and calling him Oniai-chan. He says he'll only go if the party leader approves, and they agree to meet the next day. The girl gets excited on the call. In the next scene, the leader shouts enthusiastically that he's in the team. The party accepts him without hesitation because he was introduced by Tsukigase. He asks if it really won't be a problem, even though he's a trap master, and the leader answers that, for their level, it doesn't matter. In Tokyo, it would be different. But here, his class isn't an issue. They say he seems like an honest guy, and that that's the most important thing when you trust someone inside a dungeon, so they tell him not to worry. The group gets fired up and decides to head out together to raid the dungeon. He stops walking when he notices something, and quickly turns around. The party is already further ahead walking together, and someone reacts in surprise when they see him stop. He feels something strange for a moment and looks at the party. Right after that, someone shouts that monsters are coming their way. The leader tells him to stay where he is while they charge ahead to face the beasts rushing along the path. He watches the party fighting and notices they're all strong, especially Tsukigase. He notes that beyond her speed, her movements are never wasted. Showing insane control for her age, she's inevitably going to become a top adventurer. While he's thinking that, she yells for him to set the trap. He says the trap is already set, and the monster is caught and torn apart. One of the guys praises him, saying that wasn't bad at all. He wonders if that strange feeling from before was just his imagination. The group wants a break, saying the older ones need to rest, but the girl is already jumping around excited, calling for the next one. They move deeper into the forest and comment that they've already gotten pretty far in, so the boss room should be close. The leader looks around and agrees. The scene cuts to a thought, saying, "It's time for that too." The man in the party suddenly grabs Tsukigase and restrains her. The protagonist reacts, but the guy tells him not to interfere, saying that even a high rank, if they're an assassin, becomes useless once they're caught. He finally understands that strange feeling from before. It was the sound of high-level gear. The man says he's heard that many times before and accuses the protagonist of masking his own gear to make it look like low-rank equipment. He points his sword and calls the three of them bandits. He figures out that they pretended to be the same level to lure them there. Tsukigase realizes they were the target from the start. The protagonist notes that, judging from their movements, they're not C-rank at all and still use high-level gear. One of them asks how many people they killed to get that kind of equipment. The bandit scoffs, saying that thanks to their disguise they lowered their guard. He laughs and says a trap master doesn't make any difference. Tsukigase is in shock, remembering how they had been nice before. The big brute grabs the protagonist and unloads his resentment, saying no one would ever party with him if it weren't for his rare gear, accusing him of looking down on others just because he's high rank. He laughs, remembering how he panicked at the thought the protagonist might bring another high rank, and that's why he was relieved when he saw he was just a trap master. The group realizes how bad things are, and Tsukigase tells the boy to run and warn the others, but he insists he can handle it alone. One of the bandits mocks him, saying a trap master would never escape. The girl being held panics and blames Tsukigase for dragging him into this, saying he's going to die here too. The protagonist just apologizes quietly. He grips his sword tightly while Tsukigase, crying, lets everything out, saying she thought she finally wouldn't be alone anymore. He listens in silence, serious, without reacting right away. He faces the enemy head-on and apologizes to Tsukigase, but makes it clear he's not going to run away. He says the path he chose doesn't let him just ignore people like them. He raises his weapons, ready to fight. He taunts the three of them, calling them worthless trash. The bandits are enraged by the insult, and one of them orders to kill him on the spot. The fight is about to begin. He sets the trap on the ground and activates the arrow symbol. The enemy tries to rush in, but is caught off guard when the magic launches him upward, leaving him exposed. He's thrown into the air, screaming, completely losing control mid-air. The protagonist charges right after, coming down with a direct slash, while another bandit watches in shock, unable to react. He cuts down the man with the glasses before he can react. The bigger bandit growls, pissed off, but the protagonist says that even with rare gear, they're still weak on the inside. They only react after he's already moved. The brute stands facing the protagonist, but hesitates, because he sees the arrow symbol on the ground. He knows that if he touches it, he'll die. Tsukigase is lying injured at his side, while the guy recalculates what to do. The protagonist charges using a flash grenade as cover. The brute roars and tries to bulldoze through with sheer strength. They clash in close combat. The bandit's hit lands, but the protagonist was ready to tank the impact. He steps back a few paces and looks at the wounded brute. The bandit growls that he's fought in all kinds of situations and won't leave an opening. He threatens to rip the protagonist's gear off by force, while the protagonist tells him to pay attention, confident in what he's about to do next. The bandit starts pointing at each rare piece he's wearing, saying he took it all from people who laughed at him, and that this is how he became strong. He yells that the ones who survive are the strong, and that he beat everyone he tried to rob. The protagonist replies coldly that none of that is his real strength. He moves in to attack, but the protagonist blocks and snaps back firmly that he didn't beat anyone he lost to his own weakness of character. Right after that, the arrow symbol on the ground is activated again. He says he already called for backup and asks if any monsters showed up. She says no and that she's already feeling better. He comments that even as a bluff, it ended up saving them. Then they look at the unconscious enemy and say that with all that equipment, he wouldn't die that easily. Finally, they say the camo cloth helped, because it would have been complicated to carry everybody. She apologizes, calling him Oniai-chan, and asks if it's because of what they said, like she had dragged him into that. He tells her not to worry. She says she was happy to have been invited. Then she comments that out of 5 people, only the 2 of them are left, so they'll call it a day here. She calls him again, standing still in front of him. She says she doesn't want to end the day like that, and asks if they can't keep going until they drop. He looks at her and asks if she really wants him to go into the dungeon with her again. She excitedly confirms. He thinks it's good to see her spirit still alive and answers that of course he will. She gets pumped and tells him to go again with her. The 2 of them head back into the forest side by side. Farther back, hidden behind a tree, the woman was watching. She thinks she was ready to step in if something went wrong, but in the end, she didn't have to. The woman who was watching decides she's seen enough and says she's going to write the report. Meanwhile, farther ahead, the 2 of them keep clearing monsters together. The girl comments, impressed with his ability, and asks if it's some kind of special skill. He answers that he kept it hidden at first, just as a precaution. He admits he hadn't been completely honest and says it just slipped out by accident. She jokes, asking if he showed the ability because he fell for her. Meanwhile, they keep fighting and moving forward toward the portal to the next floor. She runs excited into the boss room, yelling that they arrived. Inside, the scenery is almost the same and there's no boss in sight. He warns her not to let her guard down and comments that sometimes the boss hides behind the door. They move on, alert. He and the girl advance carefully, but suddenly an enemy appears and attacks without warning. The strike comes fast, and she gets thrown back by the impact, while he tries to react at the same moment. He analyzes the marks on the ground, saying he had been alert the whole time, so there's no way he would have missed that. He figures it wasn't something visible to the naked eye. He concludes it was a wolf-type monster with stealth ability, no doubt. He identifies it as a stealth wolf. The howl starts echoing, and he realizes the sound is calling the other wolves. They notice that the stealth wolf stays hidden, while the others attack non-stop, as if it keeps calling reinforcements. The boy says the only way to stop this is to find the stealth wolf and kill it first. The girl jumps into the middle of the pack and points in the direction where she thinks it's hiding. They start setting traps combined with fire to try to limit the wolves that keep appearing endlessly. The girl runs around, cutting down monsters while counting how many show up. Seeing that the wolves don't stop, the boy concludes that the spawn really is infinite as long as the stealth wolf is alive. They realize it's hard to react because the stealth wolf mixes in and might not even be close to the group. The boy then shouts to Tsukigase, asking if she can hold the pack by herself for 10 seconds while he does something. Tsukigase agrees and charges into the wolves while he runs off to prepare something. In the middle of the fight, the boy activates another set of traps and combines it with a slash to clear the area. The explosion wipes out a good part of the pack. With fewer wolves around, he says that now he can focus only on the howl to track the stealth wolf, and Tsukigase says that if it howls again, she'll definitely hear it. She tries to act before the stealth wolf reveals itself, but is caught off guard. The wolf vanishes from sight and attacks again, knocking her down with one blow. He says not to worry, because he already has a plan. Even without knowing where the stealth wolf is, he stays calm. The girl lying on the ground thinks about how much she's enjoying fighting by his side. To her, that feeling is similar to love. She looks at him, surprised by what she just felt, and calls his name softly Kagiura Onii-chan. Inside her, the feeling of fighting by his side starts to seem like something truly real. She runs up to him, still out of breath after the battle, and directly asks if he wants to form an official duo with her. He turns his head, surprised by the proposal. He remembers that he never thought about joining any group that wasn't Holy Sword. She calls him again and repeats the question about forming a real duo, waiting for his answer. He says that before answering about forming a duo, they need to deal with the stealth wolf. She agrees and thanks him. Later, after losing the monster's trail again, he says he already knows where it is and asks for her help so they can move in secretly. She smiles and says he's amazing, that she's counting on him because the fight is close. She moves in with her weapon ready while the stealth wolf appears in front. Somewhere else, he takes position and something triggers with a snap. The stealth wolf appears, leaping in to attack, but the boy was already prepared. He looks at it from the side and quietly confirms that he set everything up exactly for this moment. He and the girl move forward together, jumping in sync. On the ground, the arrow symbol appears repeated 4 times, ready to fire at the right moment. She dashes ahead with all her strength while he follows right behind, using her speed to close the distance to the hidden wolf. In the back, you can see the trail of beasts moving across the field. She yells for him to go, saying she trusts he'll hit the target even without being able to see clearly. Pushed by her shout, he rushes in with everything toward the invisible target. She runs forward with everything she's got, matching his movement right above, ready to follow up the attack without hesitation. He runs over to the girl, calling out to her, and the two of them realize they did it. Right after, a large mist gate appears before them, the clear gate. The girl looks back, smiling, and thanks him for the help. In the next scene, already outside the portal, someone listens to the report and comments that now they understand what happened. The scene shifts to a terrace with tables. The observer who followed the case says she's glad they came back safe. Right after that, she appears serving as a maid, explaining that when she isn't on observation duty, she works as a maid. They're surprised and say they thought it was weird she wasn't in observer uniform. She admits that part of what she feels is nervousness. He asks if she gets along with the people there. Then she goes back to the main topic and demands an answer. She asks again if he's going to form a group with her, saying she still hasn't heard his reply. He apologizes for taking so long. One of the girls asks if they were talking about forming a group. He then explains straight. He doesn't plan to form an official party because he already had a group before and his goal is to reunite with those people. She starts to say that she also had a group before. Resumo direito. The blonde girl says it's not a problem and that forming a party has many advantages. You can level up faster and coordination makes the group stronger. She also comments that if he keeps going solo, he won't learn skills designed for team combat. And she adds that if his goal is to go back to Holy Sword, accepting Tsukigase's offer would only help. Narração direita. The girl says that if that's the only condition to form a group, she accepts without hesitation. She says she wouldn't throw away the chance to fight by his side over something so small. He comments that he always learns from other people, and then thinks that if he had to make a party with someone other than Holy Sword, it would be with her. He says he wants to form a duo with Tsukigase. She asks if he'd still agree, even if it's selfish on her part. He accepts, saying he'll help make her dream come true. She answers excited that she'd gladly take him up on that. The other girl then says it's decided. They're sitting having tea when the girl asks if Rizel can join the group. Rizel, surprised, confirms if she really means her, and the other explains that she tried to set her doubts aside and wants to know if Tsukigase agrees. Tsukigase says sure, the more the merrier. Rizel accepts, saying a tank is always needed. She jumps from her chair celebrating, saying that now it's their group and it feels like a dream. They sit and talk about how someone will handle the paperwork and ask what the party name will be. The girls say he should decide since he'll be the leader. He thinks about the name. He thinks for a moment in silence, then says the group's name will be Vestige. He admits to himself that chasing the past might be shameful, but it's what drives him now. Then everyone agrees with the name Vestige and celebrates, saying that will be the group's official name. Rizel says she thinks it's a good name, and the two girls are already talking about exchanging contacts as friends. She reads his data, 14 years old, Tsukigase Tukasa, and freezes in shock when she notices he's male. Meanwhile, he and the girl beside him just stay there calmly, as if it were normal. The girl yells in surprise when she finds out he's a boy, while the others burst out laughing, saying they already knew she wouldn't notice. The scene shifts to the city, and someone comments after seeing the news. Kiikiru has formed a group. One of the girls arrives and hands in a report. The woman thanks her and asks her to keep watching. She comments that the boy is a pretty curious childhood friend. She says she did this without the boss knowing, but accepted the Kuhai's request. Then she says she was lucky to find him using her connections, concluding that he really didn't go back home. She walks alone and thinks Keiichiro is an idiot for being an adventurer, but admits she likes that about him, finding it cute. When she looks at a dangerous area, she remembers hearing that he still doesn't have a high enough level for that place. She stands, staring at the flying monsters approaching, without showing fear. Then she activates a skill that unleashes a giant dark wave and destroys everything at once. She comments that if the boy is coming after them, then they need to finish that before he catches up. Right after, another duo arrives nearby and asks if the way there was safe, and one of them answers that it was fine. She appears excited, saying she's pumped up, wearing a dress for the first time in this kind of event, and asking if it looks good on her. He comments on the dress while he tries to fix his tie, and admits he's always been bad at that. She notices he's a little tense. Right after, another girl asks if they're ready, and they answer yes. They line up side by side, dressed for the occasion, and walk toward the hall while declaring they're heading into the first battle of the group Vestige. They watch the explanation. Several teams gather to take on a difficult dungeon in raid format. Upon entering the hall, Tsukigaze looks around amazed at how many parties are present. Kagura comments that this time is special because of the leadership role involved. The raid organizer, Kiryuin Jessica, steps onto the stage and excitedly announces that she's happy with the event's outcome. Meanwhile, the group watches from a distance and comments that, despite her looking young, she already has a good reputation as a promising witch and gives off the vibe of a rich foreign girl. Jessica excitedly announces the event's success. The trio quietly comments that, even though she's young, she's a promising witch and looks like a rich girl from overseas. Then they explain that, in reality, the one funding the raid is her father, who wants the prestige of clearing a high-level gate. They also wonder if they're going to be sponsored and paid at the same time. They say that raids always gather a lot of people, so you can slip in 1 or 2 rookies if there are strong allies around. That's why they're paying a lot. They want to attract better adventurers than usual. That way, the organizer secures the achievement of clearing a high-level gate, while the others get rewarded and also gain experience in an area above their usual level, a deal that benefits both sides. She says she understands it might seem a bit unfair, but he remembers he was once carried by the best party in the country, so he has no right to complain. The organizer says she feels honored to have so many good adventurers there, but admits they ended up registering more people than expected. He comments that he asked Rizai to put their group in the registration. And then the organizer announces that the next day, there will be a selection trial to decide who joins the raid. The organizer announces that the selection will be through duels, and that out of everyone there, only 20 will be chosen. The girl is shocked, asking if the rest will just be sent away, and he answers that this is normal. Rizai says she'll walk around and greet people. The sister switches into priorities mode and says she's going to eat as much as she can while she still can. He looks around the hall, thinking that the atmosphere reminds him of the old days. At the same time, he's worried about having been expelled from Holy Sword, and fears that might cause some problem if it comes out. He concludes that all he can do is hope no one finds out and wonders what he should do now. A girl in a school uniform was murmuring nervously that she might not make it into the raid. Kei notices there was another young participant besides Tsukigaze. The girl trembles, saying she has to win, but hesitates halfway through the sentence. The girl ends up bumping into him, drops the tray, and falls on top of him. Kei tries to calm her down, asking why she's so nervous. She curls up, apologizing, completely desperate. She confesses while crying that she's a mage and needs to get into the raid, but she's bad at duels. Kei understands and says there are lots of backline people who also aren't good at that, and that he himself is like that, so it's fine. He explains that the organizer just wants the most suitable ones, so it's not like everyone who loses will be sent away. If she properly shows what she can do, she can get in even if she loses. He says she should be paired with someone that lets her show her potential and asks her to just put on a good show and not drop any more food. She breathes more easily and thanks him. He says he only said that to calm her down, but as a C-rank trapmaster, he's pretty much forced to win. Later in the hall, a girl runs up to another and hugs her, calling Akino, saying she's happy she's going to participate. She says Akino is the only friend she has there. Jessica shows up and is congratulated for the organization. A friend asks if she's scared. The other answers that of course she'd come. It's her turn to be in the spotlight. Then that same girl says that when everything is over, her father is going to hand the company over to her. The friend complains that she's being treated like a child again, but she insists that when her father passes the company on, then they'll be equals. One of them says she accepted the boy into the group on Akino's recommendation, but asks if she's really sure about putting a trapmaster with them. The other snaps back, annoyed, saying she already explained how valuable he is, and accuses her friend of not understanding his worth, calling her a child. The scene cuts to the next day. Keiichiro wins the duel and is announced as the victor. He thinks that in the end he had to use his arrow symbol technique and hopes no one noticed. The commander watches the fight, intrigued by the strange attack. In the crowd, someone comments in surprise about losing to a trapmaster. The girl praises him, saying he's not bad. Keiichiro is congratulated, and Tsukige celebrates, asking for praise. Then they say the next match is Rizai's, and they're going to cheer for her. They run off to watch Rizai's match. Tsukigase comments that she's never seen Akino fight before and confirms she's a paladin. Keiichiro says he hasn't seen much of her either. In the arena, the two opponents face each other, and someone notes it'll be a duel between mage and paladin, focused on strength. One of the girls recognizes who the opponent is and is surprised. The judge starts the duel. The paladin faces the mage with her shield raised. Keiichiro recognizes the girl from the day before. The friend cheers loudly, asking her sister to do her best, while the mage takes a deep breath, trying to stay calm so she can put on a good show. The mage raises her hand and pulls something invisible in the air, as if drawing back a magic bowstring. The paladin finds it strange when she sees there's no visible arrow, but feels something coming anyway. The invisible arrow is fired with absurd force, making the air scream along the path. The spectators are shocked by the power, and the girl cheering below wonders if the paladin will be able to block that. The boy comments that maybe his advice was pointless. The paladin stares down the incoming attack and thinks she could dodge, but decides to plant her feet and take it head-on to prove a tank's strength. She raises her shield and receives the impact from the front, denting the ground from the weight of the blow. The paladin holds the impact behind the shield without stepping back, leaving everyone stunned by her endurance. The two watching cheer, saying she blocked it and is insanely tough, while the girl encourages her sister to keep going. The archer moves in, thinking she has to get past the shield, seeing she's already inside its range and that the real fight starts there. But before the clash, the judge steps in and calls a stop. The judge says both of them have passed. They'd already shown enough skill, and the fight could have gotten ugly. After that, they comment how impressed they are and leave. The boy says he's heading out first, and the girl replies, "Okay." She finds him in the hallway and calls out. She says she only wasn't nervous because of his advice and thanks him. He says it was good she was able to show her strength, and comments that it's nice to have someone strong in the group. She answers, surprised, saying she had no idea he was that strong too. She introduces herself as Usui Toru, a bit shy. She tries to give him something as thanks, but he refuses, saying he didn't do it, expecting a reward. Kei looks at her bag and notices it's full of buttons and keychains of the same girl she's clearly an obsessed Akino fan. He recognizes the girl from the bag full of stuff and says, "Yuko!" She freezes on the spot, shocked that he said that name, while someone next to them asks if he really just called her Yuko. She panics and says he can't call her Yuko. She says Yuko is a special nickname from Ashitari-san, and only close friends of hers are allowed to use it. She opens a report book and points at the page, saying that as fans, they need to respect that. He's impressed she knows so much, but understands why. He says he really was part of the Holy Sword group, but says the media always focused on the leader and the most famous members, so the public only knows names like Yuko and Kukuri. He comments it's actually better that way, because he couldn't stand being criticized by the whole country as someone who just rode on their fame. He meets the girl in the hallway and she, nervous, complains that he can't call Ashitari Yuko. He tries to justify it, saying the nickname slipped out because he's the one who made it up. Watching her reaction, he realizes on the spot, this girl is a Yuko fan. She's stunned when she realizes he really called Yuko that in the past. Then, her sister runs up to him calling Keiichiro-kun and apologizing for the delay. When she hears his name, the fan freezes, staring shocked to find out who he is. She says she'd heard that Yuko was a nickname given by a childhood friend, but thought it was just a rumor, since that never came up in interviews. It only came from a fan who met Ashitari in person. He confirms it, and she understands that it's something real and very specific. The girl calls him the fourth ghost member of Holy Sword, using that title like it's something special. He gets embarrassed and asks them not to call him that, saying it's shameful. The other girl tries to excuse it, saying there are circumstances involved, hinting that the story isn't simple. The girl reacts in shock when she hears he was expelled, shouting out loud. The boy next to them is already picturing a scandal involving the Holy Sword group. Kay tries to deny it, but is shaken by how the conversation is going. Right after, another girl shows up and asks what's going on, while the boy keeps muttering, "A scandal," all depressed. He admits he was expelled, with no way to deny it. The other girl comments that he's not trying to win anyone over, he's just getting exposed. Then, talking alone with the girl, he says he wants to avoid trouble and doesn't want Holy Sword's name dragged in again because of him. He explains that if people found out he was a member, they wouldn't leave him alone, so he asks her to keep it secret. She just replies that she understands. He thanks her when she promises to keep it secret. The girl fumbles her words a bit, embarrassed, and then asks if he has any photo with Ashitari. He takes out his phone, saying, "Let me see." The other girl beside them comments that the girl is really strong emotionally. She sees the photo and starts trembling, holding back tears, like she's quietly freaking out inside. The girl in the photo is posing with a peace sign, with an idol-like face. The boy thinks he'd heard about crazy fans of the three before, but seeing one in person is weird. The fan whispers, stammering, impressed that it's a rare photo of Ashitari as a child. Two guys walk by and recognize the protagonist as someone from Holy Sword, which puts him on edge immediately. The girl notices and tells them to drop the subject so he won't be exposed again today. She brings up the bag full of Yuko merch and says excitedly that she's converting him, while the other guy reacts surprised at how much merch she has. In the end, he thanks her, a bit embarrassed, for having saved him from that situation, and she apologizes. The two girls call the shy girl into the conversation, not just with the protagonist. They guess they're about the same age, and the girl says she's 14. The two of them react, saying they are too. Then they ask if she always works alone. She says she usually lives far away, but shows up when there are big raids. They comment that high-ranked places are full of danger, and even though she's the same age, she seems to take the work very seriously. The girl says there's a drop item she absolutely has to get. She says the name, Blue Elixir. The girl talks about the Blue Elixir and says it's an extremely rare item, being sold for at least 1 billion yen. The other one is shocked at the price. Thinking out loud, one of them concludes that if someone is after an elixir, it's probably because they have someone close who's sick. The girl reveals that her mother is very ill, to the point she can no longer walk. She says the doctors have said there's nothing more they can do with this world's technology. She says she's saving money, but getting the drop would be ideal. The boy understands that's why she wanted to get into the raid no matter what. She thanks Kajura and then leaves, saying goodnight. They comment that there are many kinds of adventurers. The boy thinks that Yuko is always helping people, even in situations like that. She says living for that is what drives her. They agree to give it their all the next day, raise their fists cheerfully, while the other boy watches and thinks he can't fall behind. The man at the front of the group announces that the raid battle is about to begin. All the adventurers get ready, and the three protagonists appear focused in the middle of the crowd, ready to fight. The groups advance through the desert near the pyramids. One of the teams says they'll send the enemies that way, and asks them to prepare a trap. The boy cuts down one of the monsters with ease, and another adventurer praises the execution of the move. Some adventurers comment that the fight is going well, and call for the group not to stray from the formation, while heals are being cast. The protagonist notices something strange and starts naming things like Murder Mebius, Statue of Heaven's Fall, and Whispering Maris, noticing something out of the ordinary. The group advances, and some excited girls praise the boy and say they want to fight soon. The plan is for the front line to handle everything until they reach the boss room, while they get ready for the decisive final battle. As the protagonist walks, someone behind him calls his attention with a, "Hey you." The man calls the protagonist to stop and not waste his strength, telling him to save his energy for the boss. He says he knows the boy is strong and that adventurers hide their trump cards. He explains that he only didn't put him in the main group because he's registered as a trap master, but he's going to use him strategically. The boy, realizing he's being valued, then asks to pose a question. The protagonist asks that, when they enter the boss room, they put the tanks from the main group in front first. The leader asks why, and he answers that it's standard for the advance team to take the first hits to figure out the enemy. Even so, he says he has a bad feeling, commenting that usually dungeons follow a pattern of monster type like wolves or fire creatures, but here it feels different. The protagonist says there's no way to predict the type of boss, and it could be something really bad. The leader admits he has a point, but reminds him that the important young lady is there, so he can't take risks. He says that if there's a reason to be worried, that's even more reason to keep the main tanks in reserve and protect the client. The protagonist understands that he's prioritizing the safety of the one who hired them and finds that logical. The protagonist feels like he's missing something important, but can't pinpoint it. At that moment, the group in front announces they've found the boss room, and everyone enters the large, cavernous hall. Everyone enters the boss room carefully. One of the adventurers warns them to be cautious, since they don't know where the enemy is. The girl comments to the protagonist that the place is scary, and he answers that something like this doesn't show up in normal areas where you'd explore alone. A huge monster appears from above, drawing everyone's attention. One of the adventurers yells that the boss has appeared and orders them to form up. The protagonist recognizes the creature and is shocked. As soon as the boss attacks, someone screams for everyone to dodge. The monster's blow slams into the ground right after. The attack hits the tank on the front line head-on, splitting the ground and catching him in the impact, leaving everyone stunned by the power of the blow. The strike hits several adventurers at once, cutting them up and knocking people to the ground. The girl in the magic hat stands frozen, staring in shock with a wound on her face, unable to believe the strength of the attack. The protagonist blames himself for not realizing it sooner. He remembers the names of famous monsters with absurd attack power and understands that this creature fits the same category, a boss with extreme offensive power. He looks at the monster ahead and concludes that it's one of those brutal threats. The adventurers stay on high alert after the devastating attack, all tense with weapons raised. The girl with the staff stares at the scene, frightened, realizing how serious the fight is going to be from here on. The impact kills one of the adventurers on the spot, causing panic in the group. While screams echo, the leader tries to react, but notices something even worse. The boss itself closes the only exit from the room, blocking the escape route. The boss prepares another attack and the group tries to pull back. The protagonist tells the shield girl to push forward and explains that the monster is a death mantis that attacks anyone nearby with its blades. The leader is surprised at him butting into his command. He explains that if no one stays close to the boss, it'll attack at random and a lot of people will die. The standard plan would be to have 2 tanks hold each blade while the rest form up behind, but one of the tanks is already down, so there aren't enough people to hold the monster back. I can continue as soon as you send the next image. The protagonist offers to hold one of the boss's blades by himself. He warns the girl that the monster's attack is absurd, and he can't guarantee her shield will hold, asking if she'll still go. She looks back at him, determined. The shield girl accepts and says she just has to follow his lead. Before they move in, the mage screams in desperation, telling them not to do it. In the last panel, she appears crying, overwhelmed by fear of what might happen. The mage tries to stop them, saying they'll die too if they go. The shield girl, even as tears fall onto her, says there are moments when a lady has to act. She then goes forward with the protagonist while the mage stays behind, watching, unable to do anything. The protagonist advances together with the shield girl, putting himself out as bait and calling the boss to attack. He raises his weapon and shouts, challenging the monster to come at him. The boss brings its blade down with brutal force. The protagonist tries to block with his improvised energy shield, and the impact blasts debris off the ground, while the girl in the back watches the result of the hit. The impact almost pushes the 2 of them back. The girl feels the incredible strength of the blow, and the protagonist thinks that this boss has the highest attack power among A-rank enemies. He knows that if he doesn't redirect every hit with his arrow symbol ability, he'll die. Further back, some adventurers watch in awe. The adventurers in the back tell the ranged attackers to lay down cover. The protagonist keeps holding the boss while the leader orders them to heal the 2 in front non-stop. The fight continues with all the weight on their shoulders. The 2 of them start to give in under the force of the blows and let out grunts of pain. One of the adventurers watches and says that at this rate, they won't last long. The girl runs toward the boss with her sword, determined to help, even if it's just to distract the monster for one attack and ease the pressure on the 2 in the front line. She manages to hit the monster and everyone behind praises her, but right after that the creature reacts with speed and strikes her, sending her flying. As she sees the counterattack coming, she panics in midair. The girl is thrown and is about to slam into the ground, but the mage runs and catches her in the air, cushioning the fall. One of the adventurers curses at the boss, while the protagonist sees the scene and calls out the name of the girl who was saved. The mage asks if she's okay, and the girl thanks her. The other realizes the mage used a stealth ability to catch her, and is surprised that a spellcaster has assassin skills. The protagonist thinks it might be because she admires Yuko. Right after that, he calls out to the mage, alarmed by something he's seeing. The protagonist says he's going to try to stop the boss's arms for a moment and asks if, in that gap, the mage can get close and cast magic from inside the shell. One of the adventurers understands the plan, but warns that if she messes up, she'll be in extreme danger. The mage decides to trust the protagonist, thinking he's a good person. She activates stealth and starts moving hidden. One of the adventurers says he'll help as the plan begins. The protagonist asks the mage not to die while he tries to hold the boss. Another adventurer joins him to pin the creature's arms and yells at him not to let go no matter what. The protagonist activates the arrow symbol 4 times to redirect the blows and keep the boss pinned. At the same time, the mage manages to reach the shell from behind. Someone shouts her name when they see she's in position. A huge burst of magic erupts from inside the boss's shell, shooting up like a pillar of energy and lighting up the entire hall as the blast pushes the surrounding adventurers back. The adventurers realize the plan worked and celebrate, saying they did it. Excited, they say, now they just have to destroy the creature's other arm to finish it. The shield girl is hit head-on by the boss's remaining arm. The impact shatters the shield to pieces while she faces the surprise blow, with no time to react. The girl's shield shatters and the adventurers realize the danger. The boss is already winding up another attack and the protagonist sprints forward in desperation, shouting her name. At the very limit of his strength and mana, the protagonist still runs to try to reach her. The other girl cries out, Wani-chan, when she sees her sister about to be struck by the boss. The boss delivers another devastating blow, and the scene shows the impact explosion while the adventurers in the back scream, trying to reach the two. The blast throws the two sisters into the air. The mage clings tightly to the other while still crying, trying to protect her midair, even amid debris and chaos. The shield girl screams her sister's name in desperation. At the same time, the mage, crying and shaking, yells that she won't let anyone else die there. She screams and unleashes a massive spell at the boss, letting everything out at once while she protects her sister, still holding her on the ground. The spell repels the boss's attack, and the adventurers see an opening. One of them uses Shadow Stitch to bind the enemy, trying to immobilize it while the chance is there. The mage runs, knowing the enemy will only be pinned for a moment. She says she's got just a little mana left, so she begs for this last attack to be enough as she fires the final spell. The explosion hits dead on, and the boss's second arm is blown off. The adventurers shout that both arms are down, opening the path to victory. The protagonist reaches the shield girl and sighs in relief, thankful she's alive. Her sister comes closer, calls out to her, and thanks her sincerely. The other adventurers praise her, saying she can fall back now because the hardest part is over. The boss's body starts to collapse and slide backward, melting as if it had lost its strength. The adventurers watch and wonder if that means the monster has been defeated. The smaller creatures move in and start devouring the fallen body of the bigger monster. The girl shouts in shock that they're eating their own father, while the other realizes instantly that this isn't an end, it's the beginning of something worse. The small ones start transforming, becoming bigger and more dangerous. One of the men realizes this and tries to keep the group steady, shouting that they can still kill them all before they fully grow. He tells everyone not to hesitate. The group charges all at once at the monsters that have started growing. The knight says that if they can land one more blow, they might be able to turn the fight, while another admits they can't just stand there watching anymore. Kagura runs over to the mage. She asks if he's out of mana too, and he confirms, saying he can't set any more traps. She hands him something and says this will be their last attack together. He says he trusts her, and she warns that she's also at her limit, but will give him whatever mana she has left. He moves in, already knowing he can't defend himself with the arrow symbol anymore, but says that even so, he won't miss the final blow. He runs up to the monster and raises his sword with both hands, bringing it down with force to land the finishing strike from above. The boy looks around, not seeing the other monsters, and asks where they went. In the center of the field, a glowing shape starts to appear, making everyone circle around the area. One of the men recognizes what it is and says, "That's the gate." The group starts celebrating when they see the gate closing, shouting that they did it. The boy drops to his knees, exhausted, leaning on his sword while the others cheer around him. The three girls appear exhausted, sweaty, and scratched up, but still standing. Right behind them, the others who survived also appear, walking near the gate. Someone comments in relief that they managed to come back alive. At night, everyone gathers in silence in front of a table with a body covered by a sheet. One girl instructs another to rub ashes on her right hand. A man comments that after they take the body back, they'll be able to deliver it to the family. Another thanks him, saying it was good he was there. The boy thinks he was the only one there who knew that monster. The man next to him says that this was the last honor they could give an adventurer. The boy blames himself, thinking that if he had realized earlier what kind of dungeon it was, maybe things would have been different if only he had said that he used to be part of Holy Sword. Even so, the man says that no one there could have changed anything. Only God could, and reminds him that everyone did what they could in the moment. He imagines that if it were any other group there, each of them would have been able to handle that on their own without needing to put their companions at risk. Thinking about that, he blames himself, saying he could have let something unforgivable happen to them, and admits to himself that he's still weak. He walks alone, thinking about what he needs to do to reach their level. As he walks, he sees a white origami drifting through the air and stops, watching it move away between the trees. A girl appears leaning against a tree with a faint smile and a folded paper in her hand, watching him in silence. The wind ruffles her dress as she stretches out her hand as if to call his attention. He turns around, surprised to recognize the girl who calls his name. She brings a finger to her lips asking for silence and, with a calm look, comments that he seems to have something on his mind. Then, without hurry, she suggests they talk a bit farther away as she starts walking, expecting him to follow. She hits it right away. Someone died. She says that even after seeing that so many times, she never gets used to it. Then she looks at him and comments that he's not okay either. Kagura admits that since that day, he hasn't seen her anymore, and that it's been stuck in his head ever since. She apologizes for having left without saying goodbye. He says he's still mad about that. She comments that it seems he misunderstood, or maybe it was just awkwardness on his part. Without dragging it out, she says she doesn't have much time and goes straight to the point. She warns that in winter the first attempt to open the origin gate will happen. He is shocked and confirms it, asking if they're really going to do that now. She explains that in autumn there will be a selection test to decide which groups will accompany the Origin Gate project. To participate, his group needs to be rank A. She says that if he wants to try, he has to hurry. Right after, she comments that she snuck out just to talk to him and says she already has to go back before she's found. He calls out to her as she says goodbye. He asks why she told him all that. She thinks for a bit and says she wanted him to stay safe, or at least she thought she did. But when she heard he was working hard, that made her really happy. He shouts her name, runs after her, and apologizes for not going after her sooner. He says he was scared to face her, but that he won't run away anymore. She listens firmly. He yells that he's going to get stronger, strong enough to stand by her side. He repeats the promise with determination. She smiles, says she's happy she got to see him, and that she'll be waiting for that. Before leaving, she comments that he seems to have cheered up a little. He stays there in the forest, his body giving off light after the conversation. Already walking away, she looks back and just says, "Well then," satisfied with his decision before disappearing into the dark. A long-haired female figure watches from above, smiling slightly and saying she likes people who don't give up. Right after, she comments that it's almost time for the next target or next event, as she reaches her hand out toward the boy down below. He wakes up yawning and comments that he ended up resting for 2 days. Next, he appears at the hospital talking with the girl who treated him. She asks if he's feeling better, and he thanks her for the help. Another woman walks in saying good morning, and he comments that it's weird how magic healing leaves a person tired, while the healer replies that adventurers always say that. He comments that the lady was also exhausted after the expedition, but then calls that a lie himself when she forces a firm tone, saying she doesn't show weakness easily. The knight then calls Rizal to talk when things calm down. They quietly comment that it was the first time he saw someone from his own team die, and that's worrying. She says she wants Tsukigaze to join the talk too, but doesn't know if he's awake yet. A girl runs over excited, calling Oni-chan and Wani-chan. The group arrives together at his hometown. A woman comments that losses are inevitable in that line of work, but it's still hard. He says he's already fine and thanks them for coming all the way there. Another friend tells him not to push himself, reminding him that when he went through that the first time, he spent days in bed. The girl smiles, saying she's okay and thanks them. Later, they sit together in a cafe to talk. At a certain point, she mentions the Origin Gate, catching the group's attention. He says that for a long time, no one even considered entering the Origin Gate until the Holy Sword group appeared. Conquering the gate has always been their dream, and when the time comes for them to challenge that final ambition, he wants to be by their side no matter what. They talk at the table, The girl says that if they're chosen to fight alongside Holy Sword, he can fulfill that wish, so he doesn't need to keep that gloomy look. The boy adds that if the Vestige team really is selected, they won't just go to Tokyo, but actually go into the Origin Gate, something much more dangerous than anything they've faced so far. He says that last expedition reminded everyone that entering dungeons is putting your life on the line, so he wants them to really think it through. Are they going to keep going down this path or stop here? Even though the group was formed recently, their answer will decide whether Vestige ends right now. Before he can finish, the girl answers straight. She's going to continue. She remembers that it was a promise, and says she'll travel and explore the adventurer world with him, so she won't back down now. The other girl comments that this might become something historic, and also be a huge opportunity for the Rizai family. She says she trusted him from the start, when she decided to buy him, and that betting on this is worth it, so she wants them to move forward together in this choice. He listens in silence. He thanks them, admits he knows the risk, but promises he won't let anyone die. The two look at him closely, and the conversation continues. He says they can try with the current group, but it would be hard. He comments that clearing with a full raid is one thing, but with a standard party he'd like 1 or 2 more members. He shows the paper with positions and concludes that what they lack most is someone for the backline. They discuss that it can't just be anyone, since the plan is to go all the way to the Origin Gate. They sit at the table, and each one admits they already have someone in mind. They agree to say the name at the same time, realizing they're thinking of the same girl. The girl receives a report about the items obtained and confirms there was no blue elixir this time. She thanks them for the information. Right after, she meets an acquaintance in the hallway, who thanks her for inviting her on the expedition and says it was rare to get a chance to be part of something big. The girl replies that they always welcome strong adventurers and asks to be invited again in the future. The girl gets a call saying that the Vestige group wants to talk to her and asks permission to pass along her address. She authorizes it and also allows them to give out her number and the name of the hospital she's at, in case it's urgent. After hanging up, she keeps wondering what they want with her, until her uncle appears and calls out to her. She asks her uncle how her mother is doing. He says she fell asleep and was feeling better that day. The two of them enter the room, and she asks him to keep taking care of her mother. The uncle asks if she's going back out to explore again, and she confirms it, saying she needs to find another high-level dungeon as soon as possible. He stays quiet, worried. He calls the girl and says he thinks it's about time she stopped being an adventurer. He comments that he heard someone died on her last mission and apologizes for having put her at risk because of his sister. The girl stays quiet, listening. He goes on, saying that at her age, she should be with friends instead of going through all that, and that she shouldn't have to suffer either. The girl is shaken, repeats the word suffer under her breath and tries to answer, calling her uncle, but still hesitates. She gets into the car even as her uncle calls after her. Inside, she thanks him and says she'll talk properly with him later. When they ask if she's sure, she answers that her uncle is a good person and will understand. Then the scene cuts to the group sitting outside in an open place. They sit outdoors talking. The girl comments on the Origin Gate and falls into thought while eating an onigiri. The boy says he knows it's a lot to take in and that she should think carefully. She looks at the snack and says her dad is the one who gave it to her. The girl talks about her father, saying he's amazing, takes care of the house, works hard, and loves her mother. She stands up and keeps walking while thinking, saying she doesn't want to treat diving into dungeons and being an adventurer like it's some misfortune or something bad. The boy watches in silence while she tries to sort out how she feels. She stops walking, looks at him with resolve, and says that this might be a chance to save her mother. She says she would accept any help for that. Then she directly asks to join the Vestige party. He accepts on the spot and tells her to go with them. He says they're going to find the blue elixir and promises he'll make sure she returns to her mother safely. She listens with teary eyes, but steady. She bows, saying she's happy to be able to work with them. He accepts, while the other two come running up from behind, seeing the scene from a distance. The decision is made. A giant golem is cut in half, collapsing into pieces. The girl looks forward and coldly says it's a shame they arrived too late. She looks at the notice on her card and grumbles when she sees it's already time to renew her rank license. She mutters that she'll have to train again, that the branch is far away, and she still lives in the middle of nowhere. On top of that, she comments that she still has to help her grandma at home, one annoyance after another. She walks along irritated and says she just wants to hurry up and move to Tokyo. A group known as Holy Sword returns from a cleanup mission and enters the association building. One of the women in the group announces that they've greatly reduced the uncontrolled area in North Kanto. A man comments that if the monsters stay quiet, maybe he'll be able to spend time with his grandson. As they go down the stairs, another member comments about the president already being old, and the people call out to Yuko-chan. The president thanks them for their work. The president looks out the window at the city and at a gigantic black structure in the distance. He says that the time has finally come to attack the core. Right after, the women in the group comment that the expedition to the Origin Gate is really going to happen. The president says he'll never forget the day that thing appeared over Tokyo. They ask if clearing the Origin Gate would make all the other portals close. He answers that there's no certainty. It's just a hypothesis, but admits that the mana that leaks from that portal really affects the space around it. In the end, he says he's making them bet on something without any guarantee that it will work. They say they'll do anything if it's to help people. The president says he'll support them as much as he can. He comments that they've already announced the recruitment of support teams, but he doesn't know how many will show up. One of them comments that nobody is moving, calling people cowards, and that it doesn't look promising. Another assures her that by autumn people will show up, and in the end tells her not to worry. He thanks her for coming along. She says he doesn't need to thank her, because she had to renew her license anyway. He comments that it's great to have someone who knows the area well. He sits in front of the receptionist and says he wants to take the Rank A exam. The woman is surprised and repeats out loud, "Rank A exam?" She starts checking his data and comments that there has never been a Rank A trap master, especially skipping a rank. After seeing the numbers, she admits he's already reached the recommended level. He confirms that he's used the duel arena before. The receptionist tells him to head there and warns that, to skip a rank, he needs to win 3 times in a row. He comments that he can only enter the room once per day, so he'll need to come for 3 days straight. Thinking out loud about the Rank A exam, he imagines the opponent could be a real A rank or another candidate taking the test. In the end, he decides all that's left is to try. She walks into the training room grumbling that she just wants to win quickly and go home. When she sees the panel, she finds out the opponent is a trap master and reacts in surprise. He stares at the duel panel and thinks that this is the first barrier to catching up to the others. The opponent is a fencer, a fast frontline fighter. He remembers that there are only 5 S ranks in Japan, and A ranks are already among the best. He's confident he can defend against her attacks, but landing a hit of his own may be difficult. They enter the arena, and the announcement tells them both to get ready. The girl sees the opponent is a trap master, and comments that she's already fought several of them in the lower ranks, but has never seen one show up in a Rank A exam. Even so, she says it doesn't matter. The fight begins. She thinks she just has to dodge the traps. Already jumping in, he activates a trap on the ground right before impact. She realizes he's trying to fight normally just to push her into the traps, basic textbook stuff. He notes that she's as strong as he imagined, but even so, he taunts her, telling her to try pushing him with those noodle arms, while he's already setting another trap on the ground. He summons an arrow symbol at his side, and she's shocked when she realizes he put a trap on his own body. He thinks he needs to surprise her more. She questions what that is and comments that if he activates it, it'll hit him too. He activates the trap and she reacts in shock. In that same instant, he rushes in with his sword, taking advantage of the opening he created. He uses her reaction, slips under her guard, and confirms the plan worked. She's stunned when she sees the active symbol behind him. She yells angrily at him not to underestimate her and blows up his symbol with a direct attack, generating a bright flash in the middle of the arena. She almost falls into the trap, but dodges at the last second and attacks from above. He's shocked seeing that even stepping on the trap, she still managed to escape, finding it absurd even for a fencer. He realizes there's no point in setting more traps if she can dodge even after they're triggered. She, on the other hand, thinks that arrow symbol is a problem, and decides she needs to attack from an angle where she won't get caught by it. She draws 2 pistols and starts firing from a distance. He raises his trap shield and realizes the symbol also works at range. He sees her attack is too strong and decides not to drag things out. He advances using the arrow symbol together with a slash, combining trap and direct attack. She's stunned to realize he mixed the symbols into the middle of the strike. He jumps using the impact of his own trap, and even then she manages to dodge again in midair. Shocked, she screams, asking how someone like that can be just a trap master, and he finds himself thinking about how fast and aware she is to have even avoided that. She realizes he can create projectiles by combining that arrow symbol with other traps, so she changes her thinking. He He's not just a trapper, it's like fighting a mage. She pulls her weapons up, telling herself that she's fought way too many mages to be scared of this. She only realizes too late that he prepared something on the ceiling. When she looks up, she sees several blades falling all at once, forcing her to dodge in mid-air before she can touch the ground. He quickly thinks he needs to use another arrow trap, but before he even finishes the thought, she stares him down and cuts him off. She's not going to let him act. She charges in before he can react. The boy tries to raise his defense at the last second, but is still overwhelmed, and lets out a groan of pain while blocking the blow. He admits to himself that she's superior in speed, power, and even endurance, and that it's been a long time since someone has pressured him this much up close. The girl looks down at him and says, "This is the end," telling him to give up. He thinks he has to win if he wants to see them again someday. He says he found a single clue, and now it's sink or swim, charging at her again. He runs surrounded by marks on the floor and thinks that there's one thing he learned. She's insanely fast. It feels like she just watches and reacts to every attack purely with her body. No tricks. Even so, he says, "Now it's sink or swim," and then shouts as he activates another trap. He drives the blade in and says he won't let her act. She tries to ignore it and press forward, but he activates another trap combo. Arrow symbol plus flash right in front of her. The trap goes off with a strong flash. She curses under her breath and moves quickly so she won't get caught. The light explodes again, and she raises her hand to her face, yelling in surprise as she tries to protect herself. He sees the right timing and activates the trap, shouting, "Now!" The ground glows, and before she can regain her stance, something grabs her leg. She curses in shock as it catches her. The trap triggers and a pillar of fire bursts upward, throwing her into the air while he jumps away from the blast. The simulation ends when the damage passes the limit. Her armor glows, stopping the fight, and he comments that his ability isn't meant for straight combat, so she never figured out the trap pattern. He thanks her for the fight while she tries to say something. He comments to himself that she seemed pretty annoyed, but figures she must have her reasons. He thinks he didn't even notice her age in the middle of the fight because of her strength, but she's probably much younger. He admits he won, but only managed it because he surprised her. He thinks he won't be able to win all 3 matches, just relying on luck. He concludes that simply leveling up won't balance out the difference in class skill, and decides he needs to find another way. After that, already back, he comments that he only barely managed to win, while someone asks how it went. The two of them say they both did a good job that day and agree. He asks how it was for her, and she says they just evaluated her abilities, and it was over quickly. They notice they still have time before meeting the rest of the group, and decide to take it easy. Suddenly, a girl comes running, calls the boy Big Brother, and surprises the 3 of them. They ask why she showed up there. The girl says she finished early and had nothing to do. He comments that she's in a good mood, and she confirms it with a smile. Then she announces the reason for her excitement. The group is going to a hot spring. They arrive in a hot spring town, and he asks if they're going to be standing guard there. It's explained that adventurers are sent regularly to be on watch. The town manages the place itself and has a contract with the Adventurer Association, working as a joint operation. He confirms that their job, there, would be like guards. He praises the girl from training and says it's time to switch. She complains that she only stayed on defense after her stealth ran out. Another girl calls out to the boy saying she's going to fight him too, and he teases her back. Meanwhile, the group comments that the job there is to enter any dungeon that appears and asks if there's anything weird about that when they say standing guard. They explain that the dungeons that appear there can be cleared by the adventurers who were sent without auctions or outside control. The priority is to secure the hot spring town as quickly as possible. That's also good for the adventurers, since they can go in early. In the end, one of them asks if they want to clear the dungeon quickly. During training, a girl asks for a rematch with a handicap after losing. Another says she'll be next to fight. Then they change the subject and ask about the guard duty, wanting to know if he could get that post just for them. The knight explains that yes, but only 1 or 2 people stay there permanently, and for now, they'll start by all going together on weekends. The girl gets excited when she finds out they'll be able to use the hot springs and yells that she loves hot springs. In the background, they comment whether that personal reason isn't a bit suspicious for so much enthusiasm. They already start planning the trip and comment that they'll need to bring luggage. The boy hands over the key to the rental car to be returned and thanks them. On the way, the girl shows the bus stop and says she wants to try the local public transport. They're surprised they're not going by car, but go along excited. talking about what the town and the people living there might be like. On the way, one girl comments that she hates running into a lot of people, especially when she's not feeling great. At that moment, someone bumps into her. The group is startled, and the person who collided quickly apologizes. The girl and the boy look at each other after the bump and recognize one another, reacting in surprise. On the bus, the girl keeps staring at the boy non-stop, making him uncomfortable. He thinks it's weird being watched like that. She meanwhile comments to herself that he came there with his group. She notices he's surrounded only by girls and gets irritated for having lost to someone like that. She wonders if he's some kind of womanizer. He notices her gaze and wonders if he did something to make her mad. Soon the girls in his group start calling to him, offering snacks and calling him Big Brother. She notices the girls with him don't look like sisters and starts jumping to the wrong conclusions, getting indignant on her own. The boy feels the hostility coming from her and wonders why. Among his friends, they ask about his previous meeting with a certain girl from an important family. A flashback is shown. The girl from the noble family promises to become a lady worthy of the family name and not to be discouraged by failure. The other comments that she was doing better than expected. Then they talk about responsibility, and someone jokes they could get fired, which she responds is not funny. In the present, the boy says he hopes she becomes a great adventurer. Back in the present on the bus, one of the girls asks if he knows that girl, and he says no, trying to cut the subject. The other girl stays silently irritated, calling him a pervert in her head and thinking it's ridiculous being stuck behind that group, wishing they'd get off soon and wondering where they're going. The bus reaches the final stop and everyone gets off. The group is already starting to praise the place for being pretty and charming, while the other girl watches in silence, still annoyed. They start walking and ask where they're going. They say the inn is called Kazari Garden. The boy gets thoughtful, trying to remember where he's heard that name before. They arrive at the inn, and the schoolgirl walks in, saying she's home. Right away, someone inside complains, asking where she's been, while she snaps back irritably that it was a busy day. The group behind her watches the scene, surprised. A staff member notices the group arriving and greets them with a welcome. Soon after, someone calls the girl by name and tells her that, since she's back, she should guide the guests through the inn. She puts on an apron, changes her posture, and now, acting as an inn employee, smiles and says she will take the guests to their rooms. After meeting the girl after she had spoken with her mother, the protagonist tried to convince her that her attraction was only temporary. However, she interrupted him and invited him to come with her because she wanted to talk about something important. Without hesitation, the protagonist admitted that he wanted Kazari, leaving the girl completely stunned by such an unexpected declaration. Confused by the sudden confession, Kazari questioned why she had been chosen since the two of them had only just met. However, the protagonist made it clear that the short time they had spent together did not change the way he felt about her. The protagonist explained that Kazari had the talent to become an adventurer and that the two of them had shown great teamwork during the battle. Since he needed more people on the front lines, he wanted to recruit her into his party. Realizing that his words had caused a misunderstanding, the protagonist clarified that his only goal was to become the greatest adventurer in the world. Still embarrassed, he finally invited Kazari to join his party. Kazari rejected the invitation and began walking away, confirming the prediction her friends had made. However, after taking a few steps, she suddenly stopped, catching the protagonist's attention. Kazari wanted to confirm whether the protagonist truly believed that the two of them had such great combat compatibility. When she realized he was completely serious, she turned around and decided to put that claim to the test. Kazari finally accepted the invitation to join the party, but she made it clear that she had not been persuaded by the protagonist's offer. In reality, she had made that decision because she also felt that the two of them shared a special connection. Kazari decided to believe in the protagonist and in the possibility that the two of them could go even farther together. Even so, she made it clear that she also had her own dreams and feelings, which should never be treated as something less important. After accepting Kazari's challenge, the protagonist celebrated her joining the party. While her friends watched with relief, she remained embarrassed but determined to prove her worth by his side. As the protagonist and Kazari walked away together, her friends realized there was something beyond a simple partnership between them. Soon afterward, the younger sister began wondering whether Kazari might actually be someone who attracted women. While everyone else prepared to depart, a powerful swordswoman named Hagane Ku left the city of the sacred sword, setting off with determination toward her next destination. During a helicopter trip, the young woman reunited with an old acquaintance after a long time. Noticing how much she had matured and left her rebellious behavior behind, the man recognized the remarkable change she had gone through. During the flight, the group detected a rare monster stampede emerging from an underwater dungeon. Since the creatures had already begun to appear and could threaten nearby ships, the young woman decided to eliminate them before entering the dungeon. After receiving permission to use her abilities outside the combat zone, the young woman opened the helicopter door and jumped toward the sea. As she fell, she activated her white sword's secret technique, preparing a devastating lightning attack. Without showing any concern about returning, the young woman simply asked the helicopter to come back and pick her up later before diving toward the ocean. Impressed by her courage and abilities, the pilot realized that she was far beyond an ordinary person. During a nighttime battle, the group advanced against a monstrous creature. Kazari took charge of defending the right flank and created an opening for Tsukigaze to unleash his attack. After finishing his attack and securing victory, Tsukigaze teased Kazari after noticing her interest in the protagonist. With the battle over, the group acknowledged that the arrival of a fifth member had made every fight much easier. After protecting every gate in the region, the group celebrated the end of the travel restrictions and received praise for their efforts. While the damaged equipment was sent in for repairs, the protagonist assured everyone that his own injuries were not serious. As she watched the protagonist take care of his own equipment, Kazari realized that he trained and prepared himself far more than she did. Inspired by his dedication, she decided to take on the next mission by herself, determined to become strong enough to fight alongside him. Satisfied with the party's formation, the protagonist gathered everyone together before their departure to reveal something important. He then decided to explain how he had learned to use the mysterious arrow symbol. The protagonist revealed that he had received that ability from a mysterious girl he had encountered before. When asked about her true nature, he admitted that he suspected the young woman was still hiding somewhere inside the dungeons. Although some believed the young woman might actually be a monster with a human appearance, the protagonist only knew that she had entrusted him with that ability for a specific purpose. Ever since then, he had felt as though he were mysteriously connected to her. The group began investigating the origin of those abilities, and the reason adventurers were drawn to the dungeons. Although they had hoped to receive unique powers, they also considered the possibility that those same abilities could eventually be taken away. After reflecting on the situation, the protagonist concluded that revealing the truth at that moment could create enormous confusion, so he decided to proceed carefully. Instead of exposing everything immediately, he gathered a few trusted allies and proposed secretly investigating the leaders of the association, believing that uncovering the source of the problem was the most important step before confronting the true threat. While the group discussed their next move, one of their allies volunteered to investigate her family's possible connections to the recent events. The protagonist began to suspect that the dungeon incident was tied to something much greater and realized that his companions still lacked the experience to deal with political matters. After putting together all the information they had gathered, he finally found an important clue and focused his attention on a detail that could explain the entire situation. The protagonist explained that he trusted the family involved more than any other possible faction and warned that sharing that information could put his allies in danger. He then clarified that he had made several important decisions without informing the group beforehand because he believed it had been the right course of action at the time, hoping to preserve everyone's trust while the investigation continued. After listening to the protagonist's explanation, his companions understood why he had hidden part of the truth and decided to support him. The group concluded that they were facing an unknown enemy and would need to join forces to investigate the mystery until the very end. Convinced that the protagonist's unusual ability could be the key to solving the case and discovering a possible cure, they moved forward, determined to uncover the secrets behind that mysterious phenomenon. After finally revealing his plans, the protagonist was playfully scolded for hiding so much information. Despite the teasing, his companions made it clear that they were willing to share his burdens and face any hardship by his side. After clearing up the misunderstandings, the group decided to put their suspicions aside and confront the problem together. Everyone agreed to investigate the mysterious organization and the origin of the recent events, trusting that the combination of their abilities would be enough to overcome any obstacle. After deciding on his next objective, the protagonist discovered that before taking part in the expedition to the Gate of Origin, he would first have to fulfill two important requirements. The first was reaching the rank of Rank A Adventurer, a goal he had already been working toward. The second was even more challenging, conquering a high-level dungeon, proving that his party possessed enough strength to face the dangers that lay ahead. The group arrived at the location of the Rank A dungeon, which had recently appeared in a remote region and remained unnoticed for quite some time. Since a powerful family had acquired the rights to explore it, the protagonist and his allies carefully observed the enormous challenge they would have to overcome in order to fulfill one of the requirements for their next mission. With every member gathered together, the protagonist confirmed that this challenge was essential for raising the level of his team. Confident after all the training and experiences they had shared, the group believed they were finally ready to challenge a high-level dungeon. United and determined, the 5 of them advanced toward the dungeon entrance, prepared to face the most difficult mission of their lives so far. As soon as they entered the dungeon, the group was immediately greeted by extremely agile and resilient creatures. Even while coordinating their attacks, the monsters refused to fall and continued pressuring the team without leaving any openings. During the battle, the members of the team protected one another while confronting the dungeon's ferocious creatures. Even while surrounded by high-level flying monsters, they successfully coordinated their attacks and avoided suffering any casualties. As they advanced through the dungeon, the group realized that the lack of a healing specialist made every battle much more dangerous. The protagonist refused assistance in order to preserve the team's resources, and reminded everyone that the greatest weakness of his ability was the exhaustion it caused during prolonged battles. Because of that, he decided to speed up the exploration, believing that defeating the dungeon boss as quickly as possible would be the best strategy to secure victory. As they continued deeper into the dungeon, the group encountered an increasingly strange environment filled with scattered objects and an unsettling atmosphere. They noticed that even the monsters possessed unusual characteristics, suggesting that the place concealed something far from ordinary. Convinced that wandering aimlessly would only be a mistake, the protagonist decided to act quickly and focused his attention on a detail that seemed important. One of the party members suggested using her stealth ability to scout the area and gather information about the dungeon. The protagonist considered the proposal but concluded that advancing alone would be far too dangerous. Acknowledging that reconnaissance missions were the specialty of assassins, the group began searching for a safer strategy before moving forward. After deciding to proceed cautiously, the group sent their most skilled scout to explore the dungeon, while the others established a camp protected against monsters and waited for her return. Before leaving, she marked a reference point to avoid getting lost, while the protagonist remained responsible for the rest of the team, feeling the weight of both leadership and the mission ahead. While waiting for the scout's return, the protagonist reflected on the enormous responsibility of leading his team, realizing that every decision placed the lives of his companions at risk. While the group waited at the campsite, the scout finally returned, relieving everyone's concerns. However, the moment of relief lasted only an instant, because a monstrous creature suddenly appeared right in front of her. Shortly afterward, an unexpected attack shattered the group's brief moment of peace and sent everyone rushing to find out what had happened. Upon hearing the scout's voice echoing in the distance, the party realized that she had encountered trouble during her reconnaissance mission. Upon hearing a call that seemed to come from the scout, the group nearly fell into the trap of a monster capable of imitating human voices. The protagonist quickly realized that it might be a deception and tried to keep everyone calm, but their companion's prolonged absence continued to worry the team. While searching for their missing companion, the group ended up surrounded by creatures capable of imitating human voices to lure their victims. The large number of monsters made it difficult to move forward and forced everyone to fight without rest. Realizing that the situation did not make sense, the group concluded that their missing companion would probably have left some kind of sign if she were still nearby. Despite the suggestion of conducting another stealth search, the protagonist refused to split the team once again, considering the decision far too dangerous. While holding his position and resisting the monster's constant attacks, the protagonist began to question whether he had made the right decision by remaining in that location. In the middle of his uncertainty, he noticed a strange detail in the surroundings. A leaf appeared to have been cut by one of the creature's recent attacks. After connecting the clue he had found to his companion's disappearance, the protagonist realized that she had probably left an intentional trail to guide them. Convinced that he was following the correct path, he ordered one of the party members to fire a luminous signal into the sky, hoping to attract the scout's attention and reveal her location. When the signal was fired into the sky, the group discovered that the light disappeared halfway upward, revealing that the entire region was covered by a powerful illusion. Shortly afterward, the strategy produced results when the scout finally found her companions and managed to break through the barrier separating her from them. The reunion brought relief to everyone, but it also confirmed that the dungeon concealed traps far more dangerous than they had imagined. After reuniting with the group, the scout explained that she had been separated from them by an illusion that completely transformed the appearance of the dungeon, making it impossible to identify the way back. Only the mark she had left on a tree allowed her to find the correct location and return safely. With that, everyone understood that the labyrinth was much more treacherous than they had imagined, and that they would need to remain twice as alert from that point onward. After the reunion, the protagonist reflected on the responsibility of making increasingly difficult decisions and resolved to remain calm so that he could lead his team more effectively. The scout revealed that, despite the dangers, she had managed to locate the dungeon boss's chamber and had also left markings along the path to prevent the group from becoming lost again. However, upon observing the door, the protagonist noticed that its symbols were different from the usual ones, and immediately recognized that this was not an ordinary dungeon, but a dangerous epitaph dungeon. The protagonist explained that he had encountered an epitaph dungeon only once before, and revealed that this type of entity did not possess a particularly powerful physical body, but concealed an extremely dangerous ability. Its greatest threat was its capacity to create perfect copies of adventurers, forcing the group to fight versions of themselves during battle, making the challenge far more unpredictable. The protagonist explained that the Epitaph Dungeon analyzed the adventurers' memories and created several copies of their companions to confuse them during battle. Although these replicas required some time to reproduce the full power of the originals, they took advantage of any hesitation to attack. Because of that, he concluded that the only safe strategy was to defeat them as quickly as possible before they became too powerful. After analyzing the characteristics of the Epitaph Dungeon, the protagonist developed a strategy to confront its ability to create copies of the adventurers. He instructed each member to focus their attacks only on their own replica, preventing confusion during combat. Convinced that this was the best way to distinguish allies from imposters, the group prepared to enter the boss chamber and put the plan into action. With the plan established, the group crossed through the door of the boss chamber, knowing that the dungeon would begin copying their memories at that very moment. Aware that every second was precious before the replicas were completed, everyone moved forward without hesitation, determined to defeat the enemy before its ability could reach its full potential. As soon as they entered the chamber, the Epitaph Dungeon's ability began to manifest, and replicas of the adventurers appeared before the group. Upon seeing a perfect copy of herself, one of the party members became shaken, realizing that they would be facing enemies identical to the originals. Following the plan devised by the protagonist, the group advanced in perfect formation and attacked the replicas before they could fully develop their power. The strategy worked, allowing everyone to fight without interfering with one another and to eliminate the enemies quickly. With only a few copies remaining, the team realized that they were getting closer to overcoming the greatest trap of the Epitaph Dungeon. While eliminating the final projections, the protagonist was surprised by the appearance of an unknown swordsman whose strength had already been partially reproduced by the Epitaph Dungeon. The presence of that figure confused the entire group because he did not correspond to any of their current members. In the next instant, the mysterious warrior called the protagonist by name, revealing that the true threat of the dungeon was even more complex than they had imagined. Upon hearing his name being called, the protagonist was caught off guard when a mysterious swordswoman appeared and delivered an extremely fast strike against the unknown enemy. The devastating attack interrupted the offensive in an instant, leaving the entire group astonished by the newcomer's power. The protagonist finally understood that the Epitaph Dungeon did not only copy his present companions, but also significant people preserved within his memories. Upon recognizing the legendary swordswoman standing before him, he realized that the entity had accessed deep memories from his past. With that revelation, everyone understood that the true power of the dungeon was far more terrifying than they had imagined. While the mysterious swordswoman confronted the enemy, she ordered the group to remain behind her so that they would not be struck by the battle. Surprised by the warrior's identity, the protagonist's companions began questioning him about his past, but he barely had time to answer. With the battle still underway, everyone decided to leave the explanations for later and focus their efforts on surviving the confrontation. The protagonist realized that the Epitaph Dungeon was continuing to analyze his memories and strengthen its projections with every passing moment. With time working against them, the group understood that they needed to defeat the entity as quickly as possible, although they still did not know how to confront such an unusual ability. As the battle continued, the protagonist realized that the mysterious swordswoman was protecting the group and preventing them from being defeated. By observing her carefully, he concluded that the warrior was a version from the past, preserved within his own memories, confirming that the epitaph dungeon had recreated an extremely important figure from his past. With the help of the mysterious swordswoman, the group managed to severely injure the enormous creature blocking their path. Taking advantage of the opening, she coordinated the adventurers' attacks and quickly assigned each member to a specific position. Following her instructions without hesitation, the protagonist and his companions surrounded the enemy, preparing the decisive strike that would bring the confrontation to an end. As the battle continued, the protagonist realized that he was demanding too much from the mysterious swordswoman and regretted relying so heavily on her assistance. In the middle of the fight, he remembered that this warrior was the same legendary swordswoman who had reached rank S and become widely recognized in the past. As he recalled the past, the protagonist remembered that the legendary swordswoman had always insisted that a team could only reach its true potential when every member improved together. Despite being regarded as the strongest adventurer in Japan, she believed that collective strength was far more important than individual power. As he revisited the past, the protagonist remembered the days of intense training alongside his former team. Even while struggling to keep up with his companions, he constantly received encouragement and was reminded that the growth of the group depended on the improvement of every member. In another memory, the protagonist recalled a brief moment of rest beside his former companions. While flying above the city and talking about their training and the team's obligations, everyone took advantage of that rare break to recover their strength before returning to their missions. Within his memories, the protagonist reunited with another former companion shortly after she escaped from an interview with the association. Showing little interest in formalities, she explained that she had simply left after becoming irritated with the situation. Meanwhile, several members of the association expressed frustration with the young adventurer's unpredictable behavior, complaining that she ignored rules and abandoned appointments whenever she became irritated. Despite the criticism, others recognized the enormous potential of that group of friends, emphasizing that even though they had been very young and lacked significant resources at the beginning, they had quickly risen to the top ranks among adventurers thanks to their exceptional talent. While discussing the future of the young adventurers, some members of the association saw them as an opportunity to improve the public image of adventurers. Despite acknowledging the group's exceptional talent, some of them looked down on one of its members and failed to understand why they insisted on remaining together. Even so, they concluded that the strong friendship between the four explained their decision never to follow separate paths. In another memory, the protagonist and his companions watched the city from above while enjoying a rare moment of peace. Despite the difficulties and the opinions of those who doubted that the group would remain together, they continued to value their friendship and the time they spent beside one another. The protagonist spoke casually with his companions while flying over the city. Although they commented on the problems and setbacks they had been facing, everyone remained in good spirits and stayed united. Shortly afterward, the group decided to end their break and return to work after receiving a call from the president of the association, preparing themselves for their next mission. One of the protagonist's companions was called to speak with the president of the association. During the meeting, he praised the group's performance, but also lamented that adventurers with such remarkable talent continued accepting low-paying missions. Despite his concern, she explained that the team's success had come from constant effort and from the opportunities they had earned inside the dungeons. The protagonist's former companion recalled that the true duty of an adventurer was to protect people. Impressed by her conviction, the president revealed that he had continued reflecting on those words throughout the years and asked for her opinion on an important matter. The president revealed that he was considering disbanding the legendary Holy Sword team in order to turn its leader into Japan's first rank S adventurer. He then explained that the country was facing a growing crisis caused by the dungeons and the lack of fighters at that level, making the situation increasingly concerning. The president revealed his true plan: to form a team composed of the country's best adventurers, with Ku as its central figure, in order to challenge the feared Gate of Origin. Convinced that a rank S adventurer could change the fate of the entire nation, he declared that he saw her as the greatest hope of the Japanese people and placed all of his expectations on her future. Even when faced with such a great proposal, Ku refused to act for the sake of prestige and made it clear that she had no intention of abandoning her companions. She realized that accepting the offer would mean breaking apart the team she had built alongside her friends, while the president confirmed that the new group would be composed only of the strongest adventurers. Ko argued that the strength of a team did not depend only on its most powerful member, but on the unity and growth of all its companions. Even after hearing that her friends might eventually catch up to her in the future, she remained firm in her conviction. The president, however, insisted that no one would remain young forever, emphasizing that sooner or later she would have to face changes in her path as an adventurer. The conversation was interrupted when news arrived that a group of adventurers had returned from a dungeon with severe injuries and one member dead. After learning that it was a stampede dungeon near the city, the president set the meeting aside and decided to act immediately to prevent the situation from turning into an even greater catastrophe. Faced with the serious emergency, Ku asked for her team to be dispatched immediately to confront the stampede dungeon. Convinced that she could not remain still while lives were at risk, she took responsibility for the mission and departed with her companions without hesitation, determined to prevent the disaster from spreading. While analyzing the information left behind by the dungeon survivors, Ku showed an unusual sense of unease, even though she tried to hide her feelings from the rest of the team. The protagonist realized that she was lying about her condition, but chose not to pressure her at that moment. The growing tension made it clear that she had noticed something concerning about the mission that she was not yet ready to reveal to her companions. After realizing that Ku was hiding her true feelings, the group teased her about how bad she was at lying since everyone knew her far too well. During the journey, the protagonist reflected on the enormous responsibility that came with the title of Rank S Adventurer and admired his leader even more, recognizing the weight she carried in order to protect everyone around her. While speaking with her companions, Ku admitted that she would be willing to devote her own life to protecting people if necessary. Even so, she revealed that she could not bear the thought of being separated from her friends and abandoning the team she had built beside them. After hearing Ku's feelings, her companions promised that they would remain by her side regardless of the decision she made. United, they decided to first overcome the difficult dungeon and only afterwards speak with the president together about the team's future. After renewing their promise to stay together, the group arrived at the location where the Stampede dungeon had appeared. Grateful for the support of her companions, Ku regained her confidence and led everyone toward the new challenge, determined to prevent the threat from putting any more lives in danger. While advancing through the Stampede dungeon, the protagonist reflected on how hard he worked to keep up with the rest of the team. Even though he took on reconnaissance, support, and every other task within his abilities, he still felt that he was falling behind his companions. Overcome by insecurity, he began to question whether he was truly worthy of remaining beside that group of extraordinary adventurers. After overcoming countless obstacles, the group finally reached the door leading to the boss chamber of the Stampede dungeon. Everyone acknowledged that they had only come so far because of the information gathered during previous expeditions, which had allowed them to avoid countless dangers along the way. Knowing that the adventurers outside would not be able to withstand the monster invasion for much longer, the group decided to act without delay. After confirming that everyone was ready, the protagonist opened the door to the boss chamber and advanced at the front. As soon as they passed through the door of the boss chamber, the trap was activated, and the group was separated into different compartments. The protagonist immediately realized that they were facing a boss, specialized in illusions and complex mechanics, making the battle far more dangerous than they had imagined. While attempting to locate his companions, he noticed that Ku had disappeared, but soon spotted the swordswoman isolated in another section of the arena, realizing that he would need to find the others before confronting the true enemy. Separated by the boss chamber's trap, each member was forced to face a different enemy. The swordswoman found herself standing before a gigantic knight and realized that the creature possessed power far beyond that of any monster she had previously confronted. At the same time, the protagonist identified the true boss of the chamber, while another companion unleashed her most powerful ability to begin the battle before the enemies could gain the advantage. While confronting the boss, one of the members realized that even her strongest attack had failed to cause any damage and concluded that everyone had been separated into individual trial chambers. At that same moment, Ku continued advancing against her own opponent, while her companions tried to warn her that the boss's behavior indicated that an unexpected attack was about to occur. The protagonist quickly realized that the boss followed rules different from those of ordinary battles. While his companions continued trying to attack, their strikes remained completely ineffective, confirming his suspicion that the creature could only be defeated after a specific condition was fulfilled inside each of the trial chambers. Even without knowing the condition required for victory, the group decided to remain calm and trust that they would find the answer. While encouraging Ku to endure inside her own chamber, the swordswoman renewed her determination, prepared her sword, and continued facing the challenge until she could discover the boss's hidden weakness. While Ku fought alone against the boss to buy time, her companions realized that she was the only one prepared to endure that battle for much longer. Determined to find the solution to the room, one of the members summoned her Shikigami to search for clues, but soon discovered that there was no exit and no visible detail that revealed the condition required to defeat the enemy. While desperately searching for some kind of clue, the group realized that the room contained no hidden monsters, traps, or visible mechanisms. At the same time, Ku continued facing the powerful boss alone, and, despite her exceptional skill, began to be pressured by her opponent. Even under pressure, the protagonist forced himself to remain calm and began carefully analyzing the surroundings in search of any clue. After observing the arrangement of the chambers, he finally noticed a pattern. Yuko's chamber was located on the lowest level, raising the suspicion that each person's position might be directly connected to the condition required to overcome the trial. After comparing the performance of their companions, the group finally discovered an important clue. Only Yuko's attacks were capable of affecting the boss inside her chamber. From that, they understood that the condition of the trial was to inflict a minimum amount of damage in order to release each participant. After analyzing his own situation, the protagonist realized that he did not possess attacks powerful enough to fulfill the condition of the chamber. Unable to inflict damage on the boss, he concluded that he would have to rely on the traps and equipment he had prepared earlier. Meanwhile, his companions understood his strategy and realized that he was attempting to compensate for his lack of offensive power by using intelligence and resources instead of brute strength. The protagonist soon realized that his plan also had a limit. He did not possess equipment with enough mana to continue activating his traps for much longer, and concluded that his resources would run out before he could fulfill the chamber's condition. While searching for another solution, one of his companions noticed an unexpected change in her own surroundings, indicating that something had finally begun to happen. Meanwhile, one of the party members finally fulfilled the condition of her chamber by inflicting enough damage on the boss, causing one of the marks to disappear and confirming that they were following the correct path. The protagonist, however, had reached his limit and realized that his sword was the final piece of equipment that still contained enough mana to activate a trap. Even while injured and under enormous pressure, Ku refused to give up and continued facing the boss alone in order to buy time for her companions. As she endured the enemy's increasingly violent attacks, she urged the protagonist to find a solution. After seeing Ku being cornered, the protagonist fell into despair and refused to accept that his companion could be defeated after saving so many people. Feeling completely powerless because he was unable to help her, he began questioning his own inadequacy. The protagonist prepared his final trap and placed everything on a single plan. The instant he activated it, his action caught Ku's attention, making her realize that he had finally found a way to interfere in the battle. Even though he was exhausted and injured, he remained determined to turn that small opportunity into a chance to save his companion and overcome the trial. Even while fully aware of the risk, the protagonist activated his trap by using his own body as a catalyst, suffering the impact repeatedly as he struggled to keep the plan functioning. Willing to make any sacrifice necessary to save Ku, the protagonist ignored his own injuries and continued carrying out his plan, determined to create an opening that would allow her to defeat the boss. Even while being pressured by the boss, Ko remained calm, realized that the problem was not her strength, and continued fighting while the protagonist's plan remained in motion. Even though she was severely injured, Ku refused to give up and continued attacking the boss with all of her strength, finally managing to push it backward. Even though she was completely exhausted, Ku continued confronting the boss and ignored the warnings of her companions. Meanwhile, Kiichiru, already drained of strength, continued searching for a way to help her. Kiichiru realized that the boss's pattern was finally reacting to his movements, indicating that he might have discovered a possible way to defeat it. While Ku continued fighting, her companions concluded that the boss appeared to be nullifying their attacks through some mechanism connected to the dungeon itself. At the same time, Kiichiru realized that his hypothesis was getting increasingly close to the correct answer. Even while standing on the verge of his limit, Kiichiru acknowledged that Ku was far more extraordinary than he could ever hope to become, strengthening his determination to help her even further. After enduring the attack until the very end, Ku finally destroyed the barrier surrounding the chamber, opening the way for Kiichiru to put his plan into action. Ku ran toward Kiichiru. Injured and exhausted, the two finally reunited, while Ku apologized for being unable to protect him more effectively. Keiichiro apologized for having given up on himself. Sometime later, Ko was promoted to rank S, and the Holy Sword Party became famous before beginning its conquest of the Gate of Origin. Keiichiro revealed that, during that period, he had already lost hope of ever reaching the level of his companions, and, deep inside, believed that he had already been left behind. After acknowledging his own mistakes, Keiichiro promised Ku that he would never run away again, and that he would continue fighting beside his companions. Even while facing a powerful enemy, Keiichiro realized that he was finally capable of keeping up with Ku in battle, and decided to continue fighting beside her without retreating. Determined not to give up, Keiichiro encouraged his companions to continue moving forward, and the group renewed their confidence in conquering the Gate of Origin together. While observing Ku's fighting style, Keiichiro realized that her greatest strength came from the White Lightning Sword, which was capable of unleashing devastating long-range attacks. Ko decided to confront the powerful swordswoman head-on, determined to defeat her in a direct duel, while her companions watched the battle with concern. Ku realized that she was the only person capable of confronting the swordswoman at close range, and advanced alone to stop her attacks before they could place everyone else in danger. Even while risking her life, Ku decided to keep the swordswoman occupied, while her companions took advantage of the opportunity to carry out the group's strategy. The group put their strategy into action. While 3 members kept the swordswoman occupied, Usui prepared a powerful long-range attack in an attempt to defeat her with a single strike. While one of her companions protected Usui, she concentrated all of her mana into a single attack, risking everything on the only opportunity she would have to defeat the enemy. While Ku kept the swordswoman occupied, Keiichiro believed that Usui's concentrated attack would be powerful enough to break through her defense and decide the battle. While Ko confronted the enemy, the other 3 advanced together to carry out the strategy that could determine the outcome of the battle. During the confrontation, Ku realized that she was being surpassed in speed, while Keiichiro and the others accelerated the execution of their plan in order to create an opening. While Ku kept the enemy under pressure, the rest of the group surrounded the swordswoman to prevent any possibility of escape and continue carrying out their plan. After realizing that the enemy could withstand even the combined attack of all 3 members, the group decided to restrain her in order to create the perfect opportunity for the final strike. Keiichiro realized that the swordswoman knew every ability he possessed because of the memories used to create her. After thinking quickly, he concluded that the only way to surprise her would be to use a completely new combination of his traps, risking everything on a strategy that she would be unable to predict. While his companions kept the swordswoman occupied, the mage finally finished preparing her spell and waited only for an opening to unleash the decisive strike. However, the opponent noticed the group's strategy and changed her movements, leaving Keiichiro alarmed as he realized that the plan could fail at any moment. Even though the strategy worked for a brief moment, the swordswoman discovered an opening and managed to escape the encirclement. Upon seeing the opponent break free, Keiichiro realized that the plan had failed and became anxious about the direction the battle was taking. Taking advantage of the small opening created by his companions, Keiichiro activated a new combination of traps using the arrow symbol and ignition. Keiichiro revealed his true strategy and activated the Shadow Stitch ability, attempting to immobilize the swordswoman for several seconds. Even though he knew he would be unable to restrain such a powerful enemy for very long, he believed that the brief moment would be enough for his companions to deliver the decisive strike. Even while restrained by Keiichiro's ability, the swordswoman broke free from the immobilization almost instantly and unleashed a devastating attack. Tsukigase reacted at the same moment and moved away from the strike, while Keiichiro realized the enemy's absurd speed and attempted to escape before being hit. Even while injured, the swordswoman continued fighting without retreating and once again placed pressure on her opponent. Determined not to give up, she focused all of her remaining strength on locking the enemy's sword in place, attempting to create the opening her companions needed to finish the battle. The swordswoman took advantage of an opening to attack from close range, but her opponent reacted quickly and managed to counterattack using even hand-to-hand combat techniques. Despite being pressured, she continued resisting and surprised the enemy with her skill in battle. Keiichiro realized that he had underestimated the swordswoman's amount of mana, since she managed to break through Shadow Stitch and continue fighting as though nothing had happened. Even while exhausted, she still unleashed a powerful attack against the group, forcing her companions to block and evade the assault to prevent their plan from being completely destroyed. After realizing that the swordswoman was about to unleash the final strike, Keiichiro concluded that he would not be able to reach her in time through speed alone. While desperately searching for a solution, he came up with an idea at the last moment and realized that there was still one possible way to stop the attack. A tremendous explosion shook the entire adventurer training center, causing everyone to panic. While those responsible rushed to provide assistance and attempted to understand what had happened, they noticed that the area was filled with holes. After the battle, Keiichiro explained that he had attempted to combine 3 traps at the same time, something that normally consumed far too much mana to be practical. He revealed that combinations involving the arrow symbol were much more efficient, and explained that he had decided to test this new strategy, but the enormous mana consumption had ended up launching his own body through the air. After the battle, Keiichiro admitted that the technique consumed an absurd amount of mana and also placed tremendous strain on his own body, leading him to decide not to use it again for the time being. Reflecting on the confrontation, he concluded that defeating that swordswoman would require far more than strength, and that taking enormous risks would be necessary to overcome her. Keiichiro put his new strategy into action by activating a trap that combined the arrow symbol, a slashing strike, and flames. Risking everything on that unprecedented technique, he unleashed his most powerful attack in the hope of finally overcoming the swordswoman. Keiichiro revealed his combination of 3 traps, merging the arrow symbol, a slashing strike, and flames into a single attack. As they had previously planned, his companions retreated to give him enough space, while he risked everything on that unprecedented technique in order to finally surprise the swordswoman. Keiichiro activated his combination of 3 traps, releasing a wave of energy so powerful that it cracked the entire arena and forced his companions to retreat. Even the swordswoman was pushed back by the impact, while the ground split apart beneath the destructive force of the attack, surprising everyone with the true power of the new technique. The attack opened an enormous crater beneath the arena, revealing a hidden cavern below the boss chamber. Unable to see the bottom of the abyss, Keiichiro realized that the swordswoman had fallen along with the debris, and leaving the situation above to his companions, jumped after her to continue the battle alone. After falling into the enormous crater, Keiichiro advanced carefully through the debris while searching for the swordswoman. To his surprise, she had survived the impact and remained ready to fight, making him realize that despite the devastating attack, he still had not managed to strike her directly. The swordswoman challenged Keiichiro to a direct confrontation, but he realized that the unstable terrain was finally working in his favor. Since she was unable to use the full strength of her sword without firm footing, Keiichiro took advantage of the opportunity to confront her under more balanced conditions. While confronting the powerful swordswoman, Keiichiro concluded that fighting alone would not be enough to defeat her. His allies reached the same conclusion and decided to approach once again to carry out the strategy they had planned, preparing a point-blank attack while promising to remain beside him until the very end. As the battle reached its decisive moment, Keiichiro realized that this was the group's final opportunity. While keeping Ku occupied, he concentrated all of his efforts on ensuring that his companion's final shot would strike its target. While Keiichiro kept Ku occupied, his companions created an opening for the archer. Taking advantage of the perfect moment, she prepared the decisive shot, and the group placed all of their hopes on that single attack. Dust and debris completely concealed Ku, preventing the archer from finding a target for the final shot. Realizing that the opportunity was slipping away, the group concluded that they might not be able to complete the plan in time. Even while under intense pressure, the defender kept her promise and intercepted Ku's attack before it could reach the archer. By blocking the strike at the very last moment, she ensured that the shooter remained protected and could continue preparing the decisive shot. After enduring every attack, the group finally managed to strike Ku with a combined blow. The explosion destroyed part of the arena, and for a brief moment, everyone believed that they had won. Shortly afterward, however, a new portal began to appear, confirming that the challenge had been cleared and that the path toward the next stage was finally open. Just when everyone believed the battle had ended, Ko appeared once again among the debris, still standing. Even though she was severely injured, Ku narrowly avoided the fatal blow and immediately returned to the offensive. Upon seeing her appear directly beside his companions, Keiichiro realized that the group was still in grave danger and prepared himself to stop her next attack. Even while exhausted and injured, Ko continued blocking every attempt the group made to approach her. With no more hidden strategies remaining, Keiichiro concluded that their only chance was to break through the swordswoman's defense. While she showed surprise at having never faced anyone capable of escaping so many of her consecutive attacks. Determined not to give up, one of his companions decided to confront Ku directly in order to create another opportunity for the group. Even while fully aware of the enormous difference in strength, she advanced without hesitation, willing to risk everything so that her allies could continue moving forward. Even while lying on the ground and completely drained of strength, Keiichiro regained his determination after realizing that there was still one possible chance. While his companions attempted to hold Ku back, he activated another trap and prepared his arrow symbol, betting everything on that final resource to bring the battle to an end. The impact of the explosion destroyed the surrounding terrain and erased every advantage the group had gained throughout the fight. With the arena completely ruined, everyone was forced to retreat as they realized that the confrontation had entered an even more dangerous stage. After realizing that the enemy was acting like nothing more than a puppet, Keiichiro decided not to destroy her completely. Instead, he promised that one day he would find the real Ku and save her, renewing his determination to bring her back to reality. Even though he had completely run out of mana and could no longer use his abilities, Keiichiro refused to give up. Convinced that the true strength of the group came from the unity of his companions, he renewed his confidence and believed that together they would still be capable of winning the battle. After defeating Ku, an intense pillar of light appeared at the center of the arena, marking the end of the battle and the completion of the dungeon. Exhausted but satisfied, the five of them celebrated their victory, acknowledging that they had overcome a dangerous Rank A dungeon together. While celebrating the conquest of the dungeon, his companions surrounded Keiichiro and began teasing him for still thinking about Ku. Embarrassed, he attempted to explain himself, but ended up becoming the target of the group's jokes. While reflecting on what had happened, Keiichiro concluded that the dungeon's ability was capable of detecting traces of mana and creating a copy of someone considered important by its target. With that discovery, he realized that the real Ku was probably somewhere near the dungeon, reigniting his hope that he would one day find her. While leaving the dungeon by helicopter, Keiichiro remained lost in thought over everything he had discovered. Convinced that the real Ku was somewhere nearby, he renewed his determination to find her, while his companions noticed that he was still unable to get her out of his mind. Keiichiro decided that he needed to become much stronger before searching for the real Ku. After remembering that he had said his group was his greatest strength, he was teased by his companions, who took advantage of the situation to draw a few laughs and lighten the mood after the intense confrontation. After the battle, the young woman observed that Keiichiro had conquered a Rank A dungeon and concluded that he would probably travel to Tokyo soon. Meanwhile, she remained deep in thought, showing great anticipation for their eventual reunion.